we have had situations in the past where different security agencies on the field they quarrel. I've seen them having different altercations. And somebody say, no, you know, I'm the police. It's the police that is in charge. The other one says, no, I don't report to you. I'm a senior officer. You know, that kind of a thing. But with this kind of synergy that we have seen now, in the past, what maybe you would have heard from the commandant would have told you, oh, we have this number of people out there. But he's telling you we are working in synergy. And that's what it should be. I think we should actually give them kudos. And I have seen them, the road safety is also included in this. The road safety, the police, NSCDC, all of the paramilitary organizations, they all sent people to the police, and the police is the one doing the deployment. And you have, some of them have vehicles that they have also sent to the police to assist in the deployment. When I went to the RAC center in Barimpa this morning, I saw that even the police were using their vehicle to carry INEC officials to go to the polling units as early as I went there. So I think that the security people have it sorted out this time. But like you said, it's still early in the days. Let's see what happens as the election progresses.
Thank you. Uche, what do you think are the factors that will guarantee electoral integrity in this election, having the assurance that security is top-notch?
Really, listening to the commandant of the NSCDC, I was really encouraged. He spoke so well, and we hope and believe that it is so in the fields. And one thing we must say is that when you hear things like this, the synergy, the understanding, the cooperation, the collaboration among security agencies, we must give kudos to our very able, amiable, and capable FCT minister, Eze Sonwike Esquire. We must not forget that. It tells you that there's some capable, reliable, dependable leadership in the Federal Capital Territory. We must talk about that again and again. It just tells you that there's a new sheriff in town. There's somebody that is capable and is coordinating these guys very well. So give great kudos to our able and capable minister, the Toknadu minister, like they say, the Toknadu minister, Eze Sonwike Esquire. We appreciate you for this kind of report we are getting from the NS. And I believe the Commissioner of Police is here for FCT and others. They will say something similar to what the Mr. Udumosu has said. It's great coordination, and it tells us that we have a capable leadership in the Federal Capital Territory, ably led by Eze Sonwike Esquire. So with the statistics and what he has said, I believe that though, like we said, it's early to conclude. But of course, like my people here, as a traditional man or like an African man, they say the Sunday that will be good, you will know from Saturday evening that this Sunday will be good. So from what we are hearing, we hope and believe that it will be a good one. We'll have cause to celebrate and say it was a free and fair, credible election. We are praying and we believe it will be so at the end of the day.
Okay, Faith, do you also see the FCT Area Council election, you know, as a litmus test for the 2027 general elections, and of course for the new, the INEC chairman, Joash Amupitan, considering the recently enactment of the electoral act?
Yes, I think so. You know, after the Anambra elections, and people were saying, oh, that was a litmus test for the new INEC chairman. I said no. That wasn't the litmus test for him because before he came on board, everything was more like done, the timetable. There were just a few activities on the timetable. So I would say, one, yes, this FCT election is could be considered a litmus test for him, but perhaps maybe going further to Osun and Ekiti is when we can really test, you know, his full capacity of coordination around that. But that aside, I think he has started very well on a very good note. The new electoral act that we have, in fact, yesterday I was asking, since they signed that, perhaps he could give us an insight into that. Now, this FCT election is conducted under the Electoral Act 2022. But a few days ago, the president signed a repeal and a reenactment law. Now, we have, from that law, it means that the 2022 law is no longer effective. So it is the 2023 as well. Yes, so the law we have working now is Electoral Act 2026. Now we are saying people shouldn't go to court. That after this election, people shouldn't go to court. What do you think will happen when we conduct this election today? Are we going to use the 2022 laws, or are we going to use the 2026 laws? So that's one of the confusions that needs to be solved before this election. But however, I want to say, in our conversation with INEC, there's a new improvement even to the beavers. So people were talking about real-time transmission. INEC has been transmitting results. People should know that. INEC has been transmitting for more than 7 years. Edo, all of the elections before the 2023 election. Even the 2023 election, the only election that they had issues with was the presidential election. The governorship election, everything went well. The last Anambra election we went to observe. By 9 p.m. they had already uploaded more than 90% of the results. Even before then, before the 2023 election, in Osun, around 8 p.m. they had uploaded more than 70% of the results. So now the improvement INEC says they have done to the beavers is that when you snap the result sheet and the number accredited on the beavers is not equivalent to the number of accredited voters you have written on the result sheet, it will not go. That's an improvement, and I must give it to the chairman for all of that kind of improvement. Last week there was a mock election that happened. We saw the performance of the beavers, it was working. This time around they have told us that there are 62 wards in the FCT, and for every ward they have made a provision, a backup of 4 beavers. So in any of the places where the beavers is not working, you already have 4 they can fall back to. So these are the things. We only ask that the humans that have to operate all of this and ensure that we have a good electoral process should work. And then perhaps maybe I should bring this. Now we have just started talking about the issue of vote buying, the role of citizens and all of that. And I hope maybe we'll get to talk about that. But I just need to put this on the table. The security agents should be able to, there was one already flagged about the identity cards of the people. The security agents also should be able to look out for this. Now, each time you go to the field and you get reports from our observers that this is what they have observed, there is an electoral infraction happening on the polling unit, and the security agents will just pay a blind eye to it. Even when some voters, try to bring their attention, they say no, until INEC tells us that this thing is wrong before they can go to address the issue. Now the question is, you have the INEC official administering election. At what point will the INEC official be able to say, no, let me stop and go and tell police that this thing is happening? Some of these things that happen don't even happen within the polling unit or within the purview of the INEC officials. It is citizens themselves that see these things and call the attention of the police. Sometimes they call the attention of observers, but because you're an observer, you're not supposed to interfere. You're just supposed to note down and say this is what is happening. But the security agents will say, until that PO that is giving paper comes to tell me that there's something wrong there, I cannot do anything. Maybe the security agent should be able to look at that, because it's occurring for every election that we go to. Okay,
Abuja, you respond to that, but let's take a report or an update from Karu with Hakimat. And we hear of restrictions, around the city center, but I've been told that it is otherwise in Karu. Let's have a report by Hakimat Aliu.
Despite the ongoing FCT area council election and the restriction order meant to limit regular and human traffic, some residents along the Karu-Yanya axis seem to be going about their normal daily activities. Shops opened along corridors of the area. Commercial motorcyclists and tricycles are also operating, as movement remains very noticeable along the road, while polling units are conducting accreditation and voting. Security President Diver seen in the different axis trying to enforce the restriction of movement order.
Well, interesting. Thank you, Hakimat, for bringing us that update. That is Carol at the moment under AMAC. And that is where you have the FCT Area Council for AMAC, the AMAC INEC office. And this is happening there. What are your thoughts about it?
I think we had this conversation earlier about restricting movement. You can imagine if movement was not restricted. Carol, that axis is always a traffic crisis area. And this is happening on a day there's restriction of movement. So if you want to take statistics of the number of persons there, you'll be shocked that you won't have up to 1% of those people there who are going out to vote. So, and that's why when people say, oh, you shouldn't restrict movement, it has become our culture because of the attitude of the people. There is no need to restrict movement if people know that you can go to work, come back, and you go to vote, and then everybody goes. And I tell you, if I tell you that the day they don't restrict movement for elections, we won't get up to 5% people voting.
Which has Carol for you.
Yes, I agree totally with Madam Faith. You know, as a people, we have a lot of work to do. Like I said earlier, the black man needs to evolve. We need to evolve. We need to change our way of doing things. For God's sake, leadership affects all of us. If you have a bad president, it's going to tell on all of us. Bad policies will be made, and we all suffer for it. And this thing Nigerians say, just leave them, one day God will help. There's no God coming from anywhere. I tell you, the principalities are and all of that. They are the human beings who are making bad policies, who will not do the culverts for you to pass to your house, who will not make sure that the drainages are cleaned up, who will not make sure that the waste bins are emptied. Somebody tells you, the vehicle is bad, so you have rubbish piled up. Maybe, for example, you have it piled up and emitting foul smell, endangering the health of people. So and then you see people, the ones who are oppressing Nigerians, collecting all kinds of taxes and, just oppressing Nigerians. I'm sorry, I don't want to mention a particular agency. They wear a particular uniform. We took a colleague of ours to go to court and say, no, you can't demand for people's papers. You are the accuser, you are the judge, you are the enforcer. And we got a judgment from the Federal High Court. You went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal upheld that judgment and said, no, face issues of roadworthiness of vehicles. I don't want to mention their name, but are you not happier today? You drive now freely. Movement is easier now in the FCT. They said, no, stick to your role, your statutory role. Stay there. It took a judgment of court. So when you have, people should understand that it is you are the one. Your hand is a part of the power that puts a president or governor or chairman there, and can also unseat him through the impeachment process if you are dissatisfied with the way he's performing. So you must show interest in who becomes the councillor of your ward, not one young head that goes there and just talks about himself. He knows he owes it to the people. When he gets there, look at the countries like Japan, countries like South Korea. You don't dare go for a public office if you are not sure that you're going to be delivering the dividends of democracy to your people without elect you. So we need to understand that what we're seeing in Kara, I don't think that that's good at all. People, even if you can't vote in the FCT, I know some people vote in their states of origin and all of that. Even if you can't vote in the FCT, at least you can sit at home, encourage those who can vote to go and vote. You can decide to pray for who's going to invest, because you live in the FCT. Yeah. So the policies of government, the chairman and all of them will affect you whether you like it or not. They'll affect you. So you must show interest. You can even go to the polling unit, stand by those who are voting, encourage them to vote. You can buy water, give them, just encourage people to vote. If the FCT is working, it will spread to other parts of the country. We work here. If it's working for you and I, it will also affect your relatives and dependents in other states of the country, because this is where it is happening. This is the Federal Capital Territory.
Okay, yeah, so thank you very much. Now Faith, I know you want to go back to the field, but before I let you go, let's speak to these issues. You've been on ground, you've been following FCT politics and the elections. Looking at previous FCT area council elections, what lessons have been learned, and where do familiar challenges still persist?
Okay, so one thing I noticed is that the level of campaigns that we had now were not as intensive as they used to be. So you go around, some people know there's an election that's going to happen, that has happened. Again, that you have more young persons coming out to vote or who have picked their PVCs and perhaps they're going to vote. Those are things that we think would happen within the new FCT.
Okay, let me cut to you. We'll come back to you quickly. I learned our correspondent Onotu Yakubu is ready to give us an update from here. He is Onotu. It's over to you.
Thank you, Ifeoma. It's actually been a very overwhelming situation across the city center. I have been with the Commissioner of Police, Force Headquarters, Election Monitoring, CP Abayomi Shogunle, who have been traveling through parts of the military from the city center where we came from. It's been actually a very, very wonderful experience. One thing that is very key to the exercise, presently as I stand, I am at Karu, Ngompashe, in Karu, Central Primary School. Let me also inform you that where I stand presently also serves as the rack for the AMAC, the Karu ward for the exercise, and there are about 4 polling units that are set up here. If I just right behind me is one, then across the view of behind my camera, we have 3 others spread across, and with lots of registered voters. The exercise also has been so seamless around here, and it's been happening seamlessly. But then, like I said, I was traveling with the Commissioner of Police in charge of election monitoring, CP Shogunle Abayomi, who will join me now to comment on what he has observed so far, especially as regards security of the exercise. Let me also inundate you that the restriction on movement of residents across the territory to ensure seamless conduct of the exercise have been so tight. I've come across about 4 checkpoints where the Joint Security Task Force have mounted roadblocks to ensure that people don't crisscross the city to disrupt the exercise. So I will. So far, so good. How would you describe the observation of the exercise from your point of call from observing the security situation? All right. Thank you very much. So far so good. Just as we have seen, the election has been going on as expected. Voters have been trooping out to cast their votes, and the electoral officials, they have been performing their duties without any. So far so good. It's been peaceful, and based on the operational order approved for this election, we expect it to remain like this till the results are announced. Yes, the restriction order was given yesterday by the Fct Police Command. That was even prior to the Fct Minister's directive just for the restriction of the like I said earlier, we've crossed a couple of roadblocks mounted by your men in collaboration with the Joint Security Task Force. What's your observation of adherence to the restriction order? So far so good. Again, for the restriction order, it's been enforced, and in the 1 or 2 places we traveled across, just as we have observed. We also have joint security teams enforcing restriction of vehicular movement. It is expected that voters coming out to vote will come on foot to vote. The restriction is on vehicular movement. And the only exceptions in this case are security agencies, emergency responders, the media, and election observers. So these are the only people that are allowed to move about in vehicles. And just as you have seen, you see that some 1 or 2 people that try to come out with vehicles, the vehicles have been impounded, and that will continue to be that way. Thank you, sir. Well, that's the Commissioner of Police, Abayomi Shogunle, tasked with the responsibility of observing security deployments for the exercise. Like he has said, and based on what I have also seen as a reporter traveling with him, there has been strict compliance to the directives to restrict movement of people across the city to ensure that the exercise is conducted seamlessly, devoid of any disturbance from the troublemakers. It's back to you, the former Argentine in the studio.
Much indeed, Onotu, for that update. And Faith, you were talking, telling us where we have improved and where challenges still persist.
Okay, so I had talked about the campaigns and getting people to know that there's an election, the issue around voter education. I forgot to actually add the political parties. It is the political parties that should actually do voter education. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who benefit from the outcome of all of these efforts. We are here talking, we're putting resources on the table, the government is doing theirs, INEC is doing theirs, the security agents are doing that. But I think that the political class is not doing enough. They seem to be the weakest link. So they have to be the ones that do that. In those days, I used to hear them say they do mosquito campaign. And when you do mosquito campaign, it should be an avenue to also educate the people who should come out to vote for you. Those days, political parties would actually print sample ballot papers and teach people how to thumb print. So that this is our logo, this is how you thumb print, so that you reduce the number of invalid votes that come in. And then the area of vote buying, citizens themselves, we have people say, oh no, I'm going to collect my share. So that share, whatever it is, will it be enough for you to stay for the next 4 years? I've gone to elections somewhere across Nigeria. You hear them say, vote and make a pot of soup. Those are the kind of challenges that we see. Citizens are not interested as much as these politicians are only interested in the outcome, but they're not following up the processes. INEC needs to also do more, NOA needs to do more, the media needs to do more, civil society. We're doing as much as we can do, but we also need to do.
Okay, Faith, you have to go. What are your final thoughts for now? Because I hope to bring you back to the studio later on before you go back to the field. Any additional information you want to give us?
So I just want to speak to the Nigerian there that is resident in the FCT. The local government election, you may think of it as a local election, but it is actually one of the most important elections because that's where you have access to amenities. You don't have water, nutrition, education, and now that you have local government autonomy, this is the time to come out, vote for whoever you want, so that you can actually hold them accountable for whether they are not providing those things. They are the ones you should hold accountable. And please, don't sell your vote.
Thank you very much indeed, from the Civil Society Organization, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, Faith Wadishi. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Well done for all you do.
All right. Now, moving on, let's go to Buhari Area Council, where Hawagimba is standing by for more updates from another polling unit. Hawa.
I am here at the Buhari Central, where accreditation is yet to commence across 12 polling units. Situated within this location, as you can see behind me, there are low voter turnout at the moment, with only a few residents present, while others are still arriving and making efforts to locate their designated polling units. At the Eagle Ward under Buhari Area Council, accreditation has started to commence voting by 2:30 as stipulated by INEC. The chairman of Buhari Area Council at the Eagle Ward under Buhari Area Council, accreditation has started, and the chairman of Buhari Area Council has just been accredited, is here with me to also tell us the process in this ward. Sir, What would you say about the process?
First and foremost, I'm Honorable John Gabaya, the Executive Chairman of Buhari Area Council. As you can see, we want to first and foremost say we are grateful to God Almighty who has brought us today to this day that we have been long awaiting.
We'll get back to you during the process of voting. It's back to you in the studio.
Awagimba there from Buhari. Thank you very much indeed for the updates. And back to our legal practitioner, Okuche. Before Faith left, she's mentioned, about the importance of the local government as the third tier of government. And I just want to ask, despite the Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy, full implementation remains a challenge. What does this mean for grassroots governance and democratic development in Nigeria?
Okay. There's no doubt the Supreme Court has spoken, the apex court of the land, and that judgment must be obeyed. I've listened to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian state say it repeatedly to the governors. In fact, I was on one of those days, I was having a meeting with governors, and he said to them, I just respect you people. I feel I owe it to you to respect you. But you guys must obey the Supreme Court judgment. Don't touch the monies belonging to local governments or intimidate any chairman or anybody to submit to you in that regard. So we must commend Shiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu for stating and restating that and advising the governors to obey the decision of the Supreme Court. Well, but some of those governors are there today because the Supreme Court spoke loudly and said, no, this is the elected person, this is the person who got majority votes of the people. So having said that, interference in any system, when you interfere with the rules of people, you interfere, you want to manipulate things, it has eventually great implications for the people. And of course, the implications are usually very negative on the people. And what it breeds, when one, because you are a governor, you call yourself chief executive of the state, you want your will to supersede the will of the people. And this idea of everybody going to bow to somebody in government house, everybody saying, thank you, sir. And I ask people, why are you thanking a governor for what? Did he use his personal money to do it? It's state resources. You're only there for 4 years to coordinate the activities of that state, together with the House of Assembly, with your appointees, and of course the judiciary collaboration. The three arms of government have to work together. There has to be that synergy to have a successful government, or I would say a working space. So governors should stop interfering. They should respect the decision of the Supreme Court. As a little boy growing up, I've seen the times the local governments actually enjoyed that autonomy. Monies were saw projects being done. I won't mention the name. One of the chairmen then in my own local government, my father used to say, that's the only chairman that really performed, because there were no interferences from the state government. He had a free hand. I think it was that period IBB, before handing over power. That short period we had local government chairman and governors before the room. That time of the rumor about is going to translate to become civilian president out of that. That short period within 2 years, we saw performance from local government chairmen.
Okay, let me go at this point. We have our correspondent who will be joining live. She's at one of the polling units at area 8 in the city center. Hello, Mariam. You can hear the studio. Tell us what is happening where you are at the moment. Okay, I'm afraid we seem to be having some audio challenge with Mariam from Area 8 here. We hope to, rejoin her when we can get better audio signals. Okay, so Guche, you were...
Yes, like I was saying earlier, so when there is no interference and the chairman work, elected chairman work, allowed to work with the legislative houses, these guys who are councillors, these legislators, they go there, make laws, bylaws, like we know they call it. They make bylaws for the good and well-being of the people of a particular local government area. For the welfare of the people. You can, and these elected councillors can also sit to commence impeachment proceedings against the chairman who is not performing. So the same thing you see at the national level, you see it playing out at the state level, and you see it playing out at each of these tiers of government have the three arms working. You have small courts, area courts, district, small courts like that work within the local government, ensuring that the justice system is working. People have small issues they take to the area customer and small like that. So these local governments should be allowed to breathe.
Okay.
Let them run this local government, and the people in those local governments should be able to demand transparency and accountability from their elected chairman. Just the same thing you see at the national level is there to play out at the local government level.
Okay.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay. Talking about the national level, let's talk about elections, generally in the country. How have we evolved? Elections in Nigeria.
Well, looking at it from when I started becoming wise as a young man, and you take it from the days of let me say from the days who was there now, maybe the election period of MKO, Bashir Tofa of Kano, and then it failed, and the military came in and all of that. I think basically more from the days of President Olusegun Obasanjo, that's the Fourth Republic, I would say. Let's take it from there, the Fourth Republic. Though we felt the effect of the Shagari government and all of that as a little boy, but take it from the days of President Olusegun Obasanjo. If you ask me, I'll say that we have really evolved. We've recorded some successes. We've also had those downtimes, I would say, those dark, experiences too. But in all, I would say that we're making progress. It may be slow, but we're making progress. We're moving. We're moving, and I believe that over time. Rome wasn't built in a day. The U.S. today, how many years of democratic governance? So we can't be comparing ourselves now to the U.S. or to Britain like that. But I think we're making progress. We as a people, like I keep saying, we must change our way of doing it. The black man has to evolve. We must tell ourselves that we can do it and do it well. And we must decide. For me, I don't think this current form of democracy is the best for us. That's my opinion, if you ask me. This current, having a bicameral kind of legislature, why do we need all of those people in the House of Reps and Senate? Do we need all of those people? Taking all of that kind of money. I mean, I don't think we need that for Nigeria. We don't. So I think we should come up, like Rwanda, for example. Rwanda is not running the kind of democracy we're running. And you see the country working. They've just decided this is what works for us. Let's go with this. And look at the way the country is moving. This same Rwanda that had genocidal issues, the Hutus and the Tutsis. It was bloody, it was terrible. But look at Rwanda today. Rwanda has put us behind. We've gone. Go to places like Equatorial Guinea. On this nation, they're putting us behind. They even Ghana here. I said we need to wake up and tell ourselves the truth and say, is this democracy really the best form of democracy? Is it really working? I think we need to sit down and look at that as a people. And you have this crop of people that always tell you, no, this is the law, follow it. Laws, human beings were not made for laws. Laws are made for human beings. If you test it and it's not working, you can change it. So people should not come with this hammer and say, no, you can't say anything. This is the law. You must pass it through your senators. You must, like the then President Goodluck Jonathan at the Constitutional Conference. People must sit down and say, this is working, this is not working. Can we change this? That's how it should be. Okay. It is not like the law of the Medes and Persians. You now come and say it is stamped on the rock. You can't change it. Even if it's killing us, if you can't change it. So I think we need to look at that. We have so many parastatals. Thank God for the government of Goodluck Jonathan again, your Rosanye report, that met some of these bodies. Okay. You know, we're bleeding, you know, on the recurrent. You see most times our budget is passed, and then you see capital votes taking just maybe about 20-25%. You see the rest on recurrent, servicing of loans and all of that. I don't think that is good for our nation.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Buche. And let's take a break now. The discussion continues shortly. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and this is Fct Decide, reaching you from NTA Channel 5 Abuja and being aired now on the network service of the NTA, and it's all about, you know, the focus remains on the credibility, participation and good governance at the grassroots. Now before the break, we're looking at, you know, with my guests, Ame Oguche Ame, a legal practitioner. And before we went on that break, you know, we're looking at, you know, elections generally in Nigeria. Now, before now, you know, there was this agitation by the youth, you know, and they're not too young to run bills and all that. And the last general elections, you know, there was so much of youth participation, and after that, but next, now, before you answer that question, let's go back to Mariam, reconnect with Mariam here in Kerki via 8 for one update. Mariam, you're on.
Well, thank you. I'm here at polling unit 016 here in area 8, and I have a voter that just, cast his ballot. So we want to find out from him how far so far his experience casting his ballot. So, Mr. Rotimi, how has it been? What was your experience like?
Good morning. It has been smooth. I got here maybe 30 minutes ago. I drove down to Area 8 and on the road I was interrupted by the police. However, I showed them my voter's card. They allowed me to get to the polling booth, and it has been peaceful. The atmosphere is friendly, and I cast my vote. As you can see, I just exercised my right. So I urge everyone to come out. This is FCT, and we are experiencing some level of development, and I hope that the exercise is peaceful and the coordination is thank you.
So what more do you have to say about the beavers?
Yeah, the beavers is working. They used it on me, and I was thumbprinted, captured my finger, and they allowed me to vote. Thank you.
Okay, that's the much we have for you. We'll keep you updated as situations unfold.
Thank you very much, Mariam. Mr. Buche, we're talking about, youth participation in Nigeria.
Yes, just like Madam Faith said earlier before she left, if you look at the statistics, I think the youths, those between 18 and maybe 49, they vote the most. And for what we saw in 2023, I can tell you there's hope for this country from what I observed. And I think the pressure is increasing. I've sampled opinions, I've tried to talk with people. The pressure is increasing. Even though we have a lot of what is Japa syndrome thing, but those who are here, the pressure is increasing. People are demanding accountability.
Okay.
They protest on the street, even though sometimes we try to gag Nigerians and people. People are coming out, protest.
Okay.
Even when you intimidate them, they still keep shouting. They use every kind of means, social media and all that, to keep demanding for the right thing to be done. In other words, we are saying let the will of the people count. So you're going to see more in 2027. I'm very optimistic that we're going to have more in 2027. Nigerians are ready to demand, ask questions, and continue to try until we get it right.
Okay, what about participating in terms of seeking elective positions?
Of course, youths are coming out. I've seen, like if you check these particular elections in the FCT, you see candidates of PDP, no particular ADC. There's one Dr. Moses or something. Young people, I used to know him as a very young person who had left secondary school there. These are young people that are coming out, and across, those seeking to become councillors, and even beyond here, youths are coming out. They're coming in the House of Reps today. Take a look at the House of Reps, the Green Chambers today. You see a lot of young people there from across all the states of the Federation. So we're phasing out the old guys gradually. It's not going to happen overnight, but gradually the youths are insisting that their voices will be heard. And so we'll get it there gradually.
Okay. So still talking about 2027, you with one of our earlier guests, Faith, you talked about women participation at the council level. Is it different from what we have at the national level?
Well, slightly different, I think. I don't think I've seen a lot. I saw a candidate having a female vice running with him. I've not really seen much of females coming out to be councillors or to be chairmen, of Amak or Buhari. And I've not seen much. I can't be corrected anyway, but I don't think I've seen much of it at this area council level. I think there has to be more willingness, assurance and reassurance to the women that they can do it. Okay. That they can do it. We have just 6 area councils in the FCT. For me, there should be more. They should create more area councils because the FCT is really large. Okay. Really, really large. So I think we should encourage women more in the FCT to come out.
Okay. We will be stepping aside briefly, and before we let you go, Mr. Buche, what are your final thoughts on what is going on so far?
Well, I want to say a word of hope to Nigerians. It doesn't matter where we are today in terms of expectation from our leaders. Nigerians should never lose hope in democracy. Nigerians should continue to try and insist on what they want. Someday soon, I believe that we are going to get it right. And I also want to speak to our security agencies. Just know that your oath of office is not to the current people at the helm of affairs. Your first duty is to Nigerians. Protect Nigerians, protect their rights. Ensure that you do what is right, the interest of Nigerians, the larger Nigerians, and not just somebody in power somewhere. Ensure that the property, because most of these things we talk about lies on the security agencies. They have the gun, they have the force, and all of that. I want to encourage them to stand by Nigerians at all times. Nigeria is better than any single person, and I believe that it will get better for our country. Yes, we sure have some challenges today with electoral system and generally as a nation, but let us continue to demand for what is right, what is constitutionally in order for us. I believe someday we'll get it right and we'll be able to look back and say we have a country that we are really, really proud of.
Okay.
That is going to come soon, I believe. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much indeed. Okuche Ame, legal practitioner. It's been indeed a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your insightful updates.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this is Fct Decide, and we'll take a break now. When we return, my colleague Abdullahi Ajia will be your guide, taking you through updates with other sets of experts, bringing you analysis and updates as they unfold. Thank you very much for being part of our production. I am Ifoma Ojinta.
Thank you for joining us on the second part of the Fct Decide studios. I must thank Ifeoma Ojinta for doing wonderfully well, opening the studio and taking us through some of the earlier reports we've seen. And don't forget, today marks a defining moment for the people of the FCT, where they have gone to elect new set of leaders as chairmen and councillors that will be representing them in the next dispensation. And as we continue on the trajectory of what we have planned to do for you today from the Unity Station NTA Channel 5 and on the network service of the NTA, we are also promising you to sustain the momentum of the series or couples of reports we've seen, while we still have our reporters on the field to reach out to us with the latest breaking news, as well as some of the important information we need to get from the field. And at this moment, I will be joined by one man that has continued to do his best contributing to national development through discussions and conversations like this. And today is not different, because we have him right in the studio with us, Amstri Ajanako. He's the Executive Director, Grassroots Center for Rights and Civic Orientation. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you for the opportunity.
All right, well, while he joins us, and we'll also be looking forward to joining our reporters to get some of the updates. We saw earlier the accreditation and voting, which have since commenced in the respective polling units across the 6 area councils, as well as looking at other issues from security, as well as also observers doing their thing to also assess what is going on. At the end of the day, we'll all look at how well the election would have gone. So before I go get some of the reports, I would like to just get your opening statements on what you feel so far looking at the FCT elections today. I don't know if you've been to the field, or you just coming to the studio, direct.
Yes, so on my way, to the studio, I observed, and then while I was driving past the various polling units around Nyanya, axis, I saw that the exercise had commenced, and then a few voters were already on the queue as at the time I passed, and it was an exercise that you really can see has commenced. But having said that, I think my opening statements will revolve around the historical nature of elections in the FCT, and the fact that apathy has actually been one of the major setbacks for the democratic process in this territory. If you look at the data from the last elections, if you look at 2022, for example, we had an average participation of 9% turnout of voters. And that was why our organization, Grassroots Center for Rights and Civic Orientation, GRACO, yesterday in our statements, we said one of the fundamental indicators for measuring the success of this election and the credibility itself would be how well we record turnouts, because we know that lots of quantum of public funds have been expended on this exercise, and it is just logical for us to also expect a commensurate increase in the number of voters that turn out, because democracy is about the people, and if you do not have a situation in which the people are actively participating in the process, then you must investigate and find out what are those things that are holding the people back, constraining their participation in the electoral process. And so that's why our organization, that's one of the things we're watching out for. And in the pre-election period, we have done some research to map those factors driving apathy, and then we, of course, try to make recommendations to the various institutions responsible and the election management body itself to drive that participation.
Okay, well, Ajanak, we'll get to know if actually your recommendations, is adding value, is bringing change. But that will be after we'll go to Gwagwalada Area Council, where Sandra Akeme, our correspondent, who have been monitoring proceedings there, to bring us up to speed on what is the latest there. Sandra, over to you.
Can you tell us, you just cast your ballot, so can you tell us the process? What do you feel or think about the whole process?
The process has been smooth, transparent, and as you can see, people are getting on the line without problem. They are okay with that problem, and they are voting free. So far, so good. The preparations from the arrival of and the conduct of the INEC staff. We have preparation for the job. Well done for now. We don't know what happens later, but now.
Okay, so what do you have to say to other polling units or other wards that are still in progress? What do you have to advise your own supporters to?
It's the same feelers we are getting from other units. And I've been calling on my supporters all over the area to conduct this election. There is nothing that is better than the peaceful society. What we are looking for is not blind those people that are people who want to destroy those people that we want to have. So we want a peaceful election, transparent election, and we want the people to conduct themselves orderly so that they can celebrate whatever victory they have.
Thank you very much, sir. So now voting here has been peaceful. We can see security personnel stationed accordingly to make sure there is order. And voters are also going about their normal exercising their franchise. And for now, there is no hitch at all.
Thank you very much, Sandra Keme. I want to say I like the last parts of what you said. It's been peaceful, and I think that should be the expectation of all stakeholders across board. A very credible, peaceful election that at the end of the day, we'll see Nigeria is making progress, because I know stakeholders like Ajanako will always want to say we want to see an election that is free, fair, and credible, where Nigerians have the right to choose their leaders without any rancor. But before I still come back to you, I learned that Akimat Aliyu Ibrahim. Okay, Akimat seems not to be ready. So back to you now. We just saw the clips from Gwagwalada Area Council. Yes, before now people would tell you Gwagwalada is among the flash points where you record crisis, even though it's too early for us to conclude now. But from what our correspondent who has been on ground is telling us is that everything seems to be peaceful. We just saw one of the candidates there who has exercised his franchise. Of course, you vote for himself. So what's your take on the call for us to be orderly, for us to be peaceful, when we found ourselves at polling unit, because it's about, the power of the ballot and not the power of violence?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very fundamental question about the nature of elections themselves. The fact that those of us in the civil society space, we always talk about the fact that election is not an isolated event. And that's why we think in terms of electoral cycles. And so you have the pre-election period, you have election day itself, and you have the post-election period. And in our advocacies over the years, we have always made the point that in the pre-election period, it is what you feed into the process that will also play out on election day. So if you feed messages around violence...
Okay, sorry, I'll have to interject now. We seem to have a... Now, just to give us an update, I learned she's also within... Let's get to hear from Akimat. If you can hear me, can you just give us an update of what you've been able to in the space of time you've been out, and also let me to know from
you loud and clear. So mine is actually on a lighter note. Earlier I've reported from the axis where the enforcement of restriction is being enforced, and you can see people coming out to do their usual. But here within the city center, the mood of the in the polling And I've looked at it, what I saw, like Trust Nigerians, we have business-minded individuals who are not taking this opportunity lightly. Since here, there will be no shops open within the city center. We have business-minded people here who have displayed foodstuffs to sell, and those who have come out to vote are actually happy that they can grab a bite here. I have someone who just finished it and he's telling me, hey, I'm very happy to have this woman here. So tell me, how do you feel?
Very happy to hide something whereby when I'm trying to vote, I got to create something on my stomach. I stand for my voting to do right thing. It is very good for everybody. Has something to do in a society whereby it's struggling to vote, to do the right thing, make we do the right thing so that the community, the society will be moving forward ahead to be gathering and voting. Somewhere whereby you're on station to vote and you're hungry and there's nowhere you can get something to eat for.
Okay, hello Akimat. Hello Akimat.
Yes, Ajia. Yes, Ajia, I can hear you.
We seem to have a challenge with your audio. I think we've gotten parts of
can you hear me better now?
You've told us, and we want to commend you for what you have brought, and continue to be safe while you're out there, and get us more information. I like that side attraction of what you have brought to us. That's to say, you can't vote if you're not strong, so people must eat to vote. Joining us.
Thank you, Ajia.
All right. Well, from Akimat, we saw, yes, it's not about just voting alone. Yeah. So people must also get something to feed, because the entire process is not just an easy thing. There are, so especially at polling units where you have a large turnout of, people before it gets to your turn. Probably you came out early. You need something to take as breakfast if you're not fasting. So I think smart Nigerians who have taken advantage of the situation say, let me get something to make bricks business. And they're making 1 naira, 2 naira, which at the end of the day it will be like a plus. Exercising their franchise and also making, an income at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I think this speaks to two things that I feel are also very critical in our analysis of elections.
Yes.
Which is that, number one, we should begin to incrementally develop a political culture where we don't have to shut down the economy during elections. On my way here, I saw, lots of checkpoints. You could see farmers coming from the farms, that wanted to, move across, take their goods, somewhere. They couldn't do it because we've shut down the economy. Yeah. And Nigerians are a very vibrant people when it comes to entrepreneurship. Yes. They can spot an opportunity, they can see one opportunity here, and then they take advantage of it. So for a people that are this vibrant, that are this energetic, that are this able to spot opportunities, we should be able to evolve an electoral process. I understand the fact that right now our political culture is still driven by violence around elections, and so we want to take precautions. But a time should come when our elections will be something that will just be part of the normal daily life of the country, where you can go vote, you can still go to your restaurants, you can still do every other thing. We do not have to shut down our economy, for elections to happen. But that can only happen when we have political actors that also play by the rules, that also refrain from incendiary rhetoric, rhetoric that causes disruptions, causes violence in the system. And so I think that's the kind of future of elections that we should begin to look at.
All right, well said there, and I learned that Ramatu Abdullahi, who has been in Abuja, faraway Abuja, one of the area councils, seems to be ready with a report for us to get an update of what is actually happening in Abuja. So Ramatu, if you're ready, let's get to know what's happening from what you have put together.
Abuja is one of the 6 area councils of FCT. It is located in southern part of Abuja. It takes about 80 to 100 kilometers to get to Abaji. It is the furthest area council from Abuja city center. So many people who regularly transit Abuja-Lokoja highway, Abaji is quite familiar. It is the town that bids you farewell from Abuja. This is Isa M. Gani, Old Honor Palace 1 polling unit. The total number of registered voters in this polling unit is 772. And for this election, the people of this polling unit have expressed their enthusiasm to responsibility early enough, even before the commencement of the exercise. Accreditation of voters commenced in this polling unit with priority voting. Priority voting in the sense that it gives special consideration to some categories of persons who may not be able to withstand the rigors of long queues to exercise their franchise. And this includes the elderly, the physically challenged, and some pregnant women. Meanwhile, the owner of Abaji, Alhaji Adamu Baba Yunusa, also came out to perform his civic responsibility.
Peace and credible relations. Wanted to do don't want any problem. And by the grace of God, I'm going to end it successfully.
That is the situation for now at this polling unit. I'll keep you updated as events unfold. I will now move to another polling unit to give you the update.
Very comprehensive report there. Ramotsu Abdullahi from Abaji telling us what had happened and what is still happening in faraway Abaji. I want to agree with you, it's one of the farthest area councils in the FCT from the city center of Abuja. Long journey gets into Abaji. We wish that you're very safe so that you continue to update us on what is happening over there. Traditional rulers are not left out, like she highlighted. Everyone has the right, as far as you're a Nigerian, to this civic responsibility. So I want to come back to you, Janako. Nigerians, yes, irrespective of some of the shortfalls, or probably like you mentioned earlier, voter apathy, but we still have interested Nigerians, citizens who are conscious of that constitutional mandate to go choose their leaders through elections like this. Have you also observed, the increase in the number of interest in people who want to participate or want to be part of the electoral process?
Absolutely. So we have a subset of our population that still have that commitment to the process of democracy, and that still have that belief that the democratic process can actually lead to them being able to take decisions that would shape the future of their communities.
Sure.
And when you look at the data, because as an elections analyst, I don't just talk in terms of anecdotes.
Yes.
I talk in terms of what does the data tell us. We can see from the data, and if we go specifically to FCT as the context of our analysis, we would see that the percentage of that level of commitment is actually very low. Yes, so you have them, but the percentage is low. And in my opening statement, I highlighted the fact that the average participation in the last elections of 2023 in the FCT was 9%. And you could even look at very much more abysmal participation data in AMAC, the Abuja Municipal Area Council, where participation stood at 5.3%. And AMAC is where we are. AMAC voters are supposed to be you and I, and who should actually go and enlighten people in the hinterland that they should come out and vote. So if participation is that low, where you have the elites, then it speaks volumes about the fact that we have a lot to do in terms of that collective responsibility to enlighten people and strengthen the democratic process. And even in our analysis, we are not also just glossing over the fact that there are factors responsible for this low level of participation. And that's why, still in the spirit of being data-driven, being evidence-based in our analysis, we have to say, ask the question, what are these factors driving apathy? And then how can these factors be addressed? And one of the factors we saw was sometimes a general distrust in electoral processes and outcomes. And if you want to change behavior, you do not just say, okay, the problem is there. The question is, how do you solve the problem? And so how do you solve the problem of the distrust? It means that you have to look at the legal framework, and of course you can see the whole debate that was going on around the Electoral Act amendment that the President has now signed into law to strengthen the legal framework, even though the struggle is still ongoing in terms of that whole debate around real-time transmission of election results. So that also makes people, that has to be addressed. Another dimension is some of the systemic anomalies, systemic participation, and it is also interesting that one of the correspondents was also talking about the fact that in one of the polling units there was priority voting. I think that should be commended, because it is not all about bad news. It's also about good practices.
Sure.
And where we spot good practices in the process, we should have that presence of mind and that level of resilience to be able to spotlight those good practices and see how do we upscale these good practices. Because when you talk about priority voting, you are talking about the needs of the vulnerable. You're talking about the needs of the people with disabilities. You're talking about the needs of the elderly who may not be able to withstand the rigors of standing under the sun on election day and all of those challenges. And then you give them that time and space to be able to exercise their franchise, and that would energize them to come out in the next election. So I think that's a good practice that we should sustain, we should upscale, and if need be, we should be able to mobilize the tools necessary to be able to give vent to those good practices that we're seeing emerging from the process. However, on the flip side, we should also be able to spotlight the anomalies, the things that are not working in the process. And when we are able to do that, we should be able to now make recommendations and then ensure that a comprehensive reform of the process is undertaken to make our elections seamless, because election is also about voter experience. If the voter comes out and he does not have a good experience from the process, he may be discouraged to come out. So from what we are seeing, we think the process is seamless so far, and we hope it remains that way, because sometimes as time goes on and energy levels drop, you could have challenges, but we hope it stays that way, and we hope more people will be encouraged to come out and participate in the elections today.
Okay, well, as someone who does a lot of research, coming up with data, I know past elections in the country or in the FCT have indicated, challenges or glitches with the beavers. Before this election, INEC, had given us their words, assurances that, all things being equal, the beavers will function. Ever since we commenced this, conversation from when it first started, we've not heard anything of the, malfunctioning of beavers. It means the beavers issue is beginning to be addressed, and we're beginning to believe INEC on this beavers issue. If you remember in the past, beavers, issue was one serious issue that some communities resort to, use of incident form and other means that at the end of the day, the same people will come with a hue and cry to say, the suspect foul play. So I think it's also an aspect we should comment, just like you say, it's not about the negative but the positive.
Absolutely. I think as I was listening to the report, I was actually waiting to see if we'll have any challenge around the beavers, and so far so good. We've not heard of any such hitches, which tells us that technology, the role of technology in elections is also critical, because technology has been able to a substantial layer of credibility in the process, because we used to know about how our elections in the past were fraught with, very deceptive figures. We knew how our voter register was populated by names like Mike Tyson and things like that. But we can see now that through technology, we're beginning to apprehend those issues around the desperate character of some political actors that we want to undermine the data in there. So that's very much commendable, even though it's still very early in the day to say, oh, it's all rosy, because there are still a few hours to go in terms of voting, and the role the beavers is also going to play in the other aspects of the process. Because don't forget that the whole idea and the whole concept around overvoting in election, which is one of the electoral malpractices that has become one of the weak links in our electoral process. Overvoting comes when people vote beyond the numbers in the beavers. And so the beavers will also play a very critical role in that aspect during the collation process to ensure that the elections are credible, free and fair, and reflects ultimately the express wishes of the electorate in the FCT.
Like I said earlier, I know you're a researcher, but I don't know if social psychologists have come up with an answer to why sometimes political actors behave the way they behave. And most times we talk about sportsmanship in electoral process or in an election like this. If you win here, it's your luck, and the people have voted you. And if you lose, you should learn to also take it in good faith. But when is that time that will begin to develop that maturity in our political culture, that people will begin to see it? If you lose, you come and try tomorrow. If you win, you extend hands of friendship, and we begin to work together and develop our country.
Wow, I think it's a very interesting question, and I must commend the trajectory that you have used to approach this question around the role of social sciences, social psychology, generally, the theories. Even when you talk about the nature of political context, the character of the political actors, the political culture itself. So these are very interesting social sciences concepts that when you analyze elections, it becomes a framework. And good enough, in Nigeria, we have some academic juggernauts that have actually conceptualized some of these things in our own local context, because they are not just bringing data from the Western world, they have also looked at our local context. And one of such is Professor Adele Jinodu, a renowned political scientist in his 80s now, but still doing very phenomenal work around the electoral process. And he has always talked about the role of citizens' vigilantism. Vigilantism, just like that the electoral process, given the character of some political actors who want to win at all costs, who want to subvert the vote of the people, that citizens now need that extra level of resilience to be vigilant and to ensure that they keep a close watch on their votes, and that they do that not only on election day, because we always make that mistake that, oh, it's on election day alone, because some of the anomalies or some of the gaps that the political actors take advantage of, the unscrupulous political actors, the gaps they take advantage of start from the pre-election period. I'll give you an example. There are political actors who do not feel they need to campaign on the basis of issues. They want to campaign on the basis of identity. And so that's why you have the rise of identity politics in our polity. You have political actors who do not feel they need to invest in data, understand the electorate, and know the kind of governance message that they need to push to those electorate. For example, a person running for chairmanship of AMAC should be able to say, I have a youth demographic, I have a women demographic. What messages do the youth need? What messages, probably around job creation, would resonate with the youth demographic? What messages around poverty alleviation would resonate with the women demographic? And that brings us to the importance of the culture of issues-driven campaign, because you cannot empty democracy of its content. Democracy is not just about a form. Democracy is also about the content. And the content that should drive a democratic process, beyond the rule of law, beyond the fact that you have multi-party contest in elections, is also the fact that the everyday issues that citizens face should become a significant part of the conversation in the electoral process. And the reason why you also see that interest is also waning in our election is the fact that many people can also see that the issues, the bread and butter issues, the governance issues, the issues around infrastructure, and I'll give you an example in the FCT. There was a time a few months ago where teachers were on strike in the FCT. And so the people today who are going to be voted for today, what are their plans to ensure that never happens again? That our children in communities would not have a situation anymore from now forevermore where they are not in classrooms. So those are the issues that should drive elections. But so far in our political culture, those issues are not there. And there's a latitude for a lot of study by political scientists, by sociologists, to understand why our democracy is being emptied of that content of character, and how we should now proceed to ensure that those things are addressed.
I will still come back to you on this issue, because I think there is a need for us to juxtapose what you're saying with a party ideology, which used to have in the early 60s, 80s. We saw political parties built around party ideology, which translated to what we saw as their developmental policies that they gave Nigerians. But let's go to Kwali Area Council now, where our correspondent Deborah Gazaji Micah, who is fully on ground, to give us an update of what is actually happening at the moment. So Deborah, Micah, up to you.
As voting continues, we moved to Primary Healthcare Center Polling Unit 007, where we have 783 registered voters. Here in Polling Unit 007, we have just one beaver working, accrediting the eligible voters. Here is one of the eligible voters who has just cast her ballot. Madam, since you came, how has been the process? How did you see voting? And when did you start voting? At what age?
I'm starting vote at age of 18. And then since that time, I will not stop doing vote. I will continue to out to now. And I'm ready to vote the election for today. So I appreciate for the election that I vote. May God bless the government and also continue whatever they are doing. It should be success all the time in their life in Jesus' name.
Thank you, madam. Hello. Please, can you share with us, as one of the agents at this polling unit, how the exercise has been so far?
Okay.
The process, the voting process so far.
Okay, the voting process is moving smoothly, and as you can see, we only have one beavers, so it's making it slow because we have 783 registered voters here. Moving smoothly but slowly, and so far it has been peaceful. We don't have any fear, and we don't have any crisis here. Thank you.
Okay. Young man, please, can you share with us? You just cast your ballot. Can you tell us how the process, when you came out to vote, and how has been the process?
Quite all right. The process is so slow, but very nice to cast and vote, and then all the exercise is going smoothly and normal. So our prayer is that let this vote recanted without any discounting. To God be the glory. From the accreditation to the voting process, all is peaceful. And I believe that it's going to be peaceful at the end.
All right, we are moving from here to another polling unit, and we will keep you posted as the voting process continues in Kwali Area Council.
Thank you very much, Deborah Gazashi-Maika in Kwali Area Council, one of the area councils in the FCT, and they are also out there to choose new sets of leaders that will lead them in that area council. Okay, well, before we went to take that report, we're trying to bring probably pragmatic solutions to why we see some of this behavioral pattern amongst our political actors, and juxtaposing it, like I said, with party ideology. Can we just briefly talk about the need as we continue to evolve to bring solutions to our democratic cultures and building our democratic institutions, where we say party ideology should reign supreme, like we saw in the early days, around people like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awolowo. Up to today, we still talk about, Awolowo's ideology of education and so on and so forth. And I think if we go that way, we'll begin to see positive changes and development, staring us in our faces.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is something that still falls squarely into the gamut of political culture. We need to develop a political culture in which ideology becomes paramount. And some people argue that ideology is dead. And in that sense, they're talking about ideology in the Marxist,
Okay, sorry, I have to interject now. We have Onotu Yakubu joining us live via the TVU to tell us what is actually happening around his monitoring with the security, particularly the police. Onotu, if you are ready, let's get to feel the pulse of what is actually happening at the moment, and probably what you would have gathered before now.
All right, thank you, Ajia. It's actually still a very similar situation. I am presently at Maitama Polling Unit 192, and from the fillers behind me, you'd see that the electorate are quietly queued behind me, taking their turns to come forward for accreditation, and then simultaneously also cast their ballot. The exercise so far so good from what I have seen from all the places I've visited. It's been a very seamless transition. The poll officials are here, like this polling unit for instance, there are 502 registered voters to this polling unit 192 in Maitama, just not far from the NYSC house. And the exercise is happening as seamless as should be. Individuals that are here to cast their ballot are quietly and seamlessly coming in one after the other to get attention from the poll officials. And of course, behind me is just one of them who have successfully cast her ballot and is filing it into the ballot box. So it's been a very seamless exercise from all the locations that I've visited, like I said, and that is the case as it had been in the suburbs like Karunyanya and other axes along that route, and then now in the city center, it's happening as seamless as it be. Though a couple of the electorates have not been forthcoming with commenting on how their experience have been, but from what I've seen so far, it's seamless. And of course, as you can see, she has just been marked to indicate that she has cast her ballot and has taken the opportunity to exercise her franchise. So that's the situation as it's been at this polling unit. It's happening seamlessly, devoid of any rancor. Quietly, the electorates are lined up and queued up, waiting to take their turns one after the other. Another one is just behind me, also casting her ballot in the open secret ballot to also file it into the box. So, Ajay, if you can hear me, that's what. Can I talk to you briefly? Can I talk to you briefly? All right. So you tell me what's your name?
My name.
Turn around this way. What's your name?
My name is Zainab Mutar.
Zainab Mutar.
Yes.
So tell me, what's your experience been like being here to cast your ballot this morning? How is the experience been like for you?
Today?
Today, yes. The voting process. How has it been for you?
Good.
Can you just feel free? Talk to me. What's your experience like? It's all right. Of course, you would understand that some of us are not as camera confident as it is. I'm assuming that is the situation with her. But like I said, it's a very smooth and easygoing process around here. So it's back to you, Ajay, in the studio.
Thank you very much. To trust what you can do, and I think that is a summary around Maitama area where you currently are. We hope to get more feelers and updates from you, and also looking at the security perspective to the outing entirely. All right, back to my guest here. You are making a point around party ideology. If you can go back to that.
Yes, so I was just saying that some people were making or have been making the argument that ideology is dead, and in academic circles there is a writer like or a thinker like Samuel P. Huntington who talked about the end of history, because according to him the Cold War, with the triumph of the United States, around the Cold War disputation, that history has actually ended and then ideology is dead. And that capitalism is now the triumphant concept for governance in the world. And of course, you have things like the Washington Consensus, and all of that. But our argument in the context of electoral issues is that ideology cannot be dead, because as far as you have problems in society, you also need to evolve the kind of ideas you use to address those problems. And so it is the role of political parties, it is within the remit of political parties to be able to engage in that process of ideation, and then they then come and sell the ideology. Meaning the ideas that they've developed to solve certain societal problems, sell it to the electorate as part of their own responsibilities as the institution recognized constitutionally to be able to access power politically through contesting for elections. But we see that most of our political parties are not doing that. Most of our political parties do not even have functional research bureaus. They do not even have think tanks that can help formulate policy, that can help research on specific problems. So for example, on education, what are the political parties coming forward with? On healthcare, what are they coming forward? On infrastructure, on rural development, what are they coming forward with? We see what the administration in the FCT is doing in terms of trying to raise the quality of infrastructure in the territory. But of course, the administration at the topmost level in the FCT cannot solve all of the problems. There are rural feeder roads. There are roads to farm in the FCT. There are still communities in the FCT where people drink from some streams. We have to then have in place political parties that are able to think through those problems and then bring practical solution on the ground for the electorate to think about. And so when people go to vote like this, they'll be voting on the basis of those ideas.
Sure.
But one of the drawbacks of our electoral process currently, including the current one, is that it has been emptied of content. in terms of governance principles, governance ideas, and we always say it, election is not an end in itself. After election comes governance. And so if you did not even think about what you are going to do if you win the election, so how then do you govern effectively when eventually you have the opportunity?
That would be an argument for another day. We're still trying to study the new electoral act, so I would want all of us to go through it and study, assimilate it, and understand the sections, the lines, and probably we'll look for other days for argument of other loopholes. Yeah. But for now, let's concentrate on the election. Now, I learned that Mariam Georgie Tubo is ready. Okay, Onotu is back. Okay, Onotu, let's get to hear from you if you have additional updates from you. Onotu.
You wait, he will introduce you, then you walk to Thursday.
Okay, thank you, Ajia, once again. I am still at the Metama polling unit 192.
The Minister of Special Duties, Zafani Ajisalo, just arrived the polling unit and, of course, monitoring also. So I want to take the opportunity to take observations from him on what he has seen as regards the conduct of the exercise in places he has visited. The Honorable Minister, sir, please, let me talk to you briefly.
All right, sir. Tell us, you've been on observation of the exercise
since it commenced. So briefly tell us, what have you seen and what have your observation been like?
Yeah, first of all, you need to know that this is the area council election. It's not a National Assembly election or presidential election. These are local issues where people will come to elect their leader who will govern the area council, including the councillors who will represent them, to provide the best infrastructure within the locality. And that's what the people of FCT have come out today to do, to cast the vote of their leaders. And I think so far so good. It's encouraging because the voting is still going, and then we are believing that before the end of the election, the exercise, I think the voting will be okay.
Right. So I am very much interested in a key component of this exercise, which is the issue of security. As you've traveled through the territory, what's your observation of the conduct of security operatives? I am aware that there is a heavy deployment to ensure that there's no disruption of the exercise. But from your own observation, how would you describe the security in the territory today?
Yeah, let me first of all say I thank the police, the DSS, and all the sister security agencies who have taken their time to provide the security to voters, to come out to support the government. Yes. And today we are witnessing the situation is calm in the FCT. This is a nice environment that where people will come out on their own to card without nobody, no interruption. So I think we give kudos to the INEC and then including the security agencies who have made a very good atmosphere for people to come out to vote.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for talking to us this morning.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
All right. Well, you heard it from him. He has also observed that the security situation of the exercise has been very calm and easygoing. So, based on our earlier observations from across parts of the territory, so far so good. It seems that there's been very good compliance to the conduct of the exercise as regards especially security, to ensure that individuals can exercise their rights without any let or hindrance. It's back to you, Ajay, in the studio.
Thank you very much, Onotu, getting us the Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, I think a stakeholder as far as this election is concerned, and also someone who is from the FCT. So I want to ask you, based on what we just saw now, earlier you spoke about that maturity, that culture. Election like this, we see serious deployments of security. When will that time come where citizens know what to do, everyone is doing the right thing, like we said earlier, political actors doing their thing to the right way, and you can just go do election without even seeing security people around. I think in developed climes it happens.
Absolutely. That's where we have to now start thinking of how we get there. We make no mistake about the fact that the deployment of security we see, given history of past elections, where some outlaws try to overrun the process, try to dissuade, other voters from coming out. We've seen in this country, INEC officials being held, at gunpoint during collation. We saw that, in Imo State. We saw a lot of, people that are under duress when it comes to election management and all of that. So the security deployment is actually a response to those forms of threats in the electoral process. And I also want to commend INEC in the FCT, because in the pre-election period they did something which is election risk assessment and mapping, whereby they mapped the election risk. In fact, they did some color coding of different parts of the territory to say, okay, these are the areas where we could possibly have flashpoints, and then this is how we need to respond, early warning and things like that. So fantastic. But like I said, at the heart of this is political culture. The political culture has to now evolve. It has to move away from the kind of desperation we see for political power, and that desperation expressing itself in illegal forms of conduct that try to undermine the supremacy of the voices of the people. And it runs across the entire circle of elections. In the pre-election period, we see that desperation expressing itself in the kind of disinformation and what we describe as information disorder, that political actors also sponsor certain demographics to spread in the build-up to elections. And they do that because they sometimes want to discourage voters from coming out to vote in certain opponent strongholds. Those are things that are anomalies that should be corrected in our political culture. And then we could also talk about some constitutional imperatives. Some people argue, for example, that the zero-sum nature of our politics, where the winner takes all, is also a problem that makes it, you now find a situation in which everybody that is contesting an election feels that, oh, it's do or die, I have to get it. So we need some constitutional imperatives, some constitutional processes to be able to address that. And of course, we need to go to the elephant in the room, which is the huge cost of elections. Huge cost of election, and we have to also juxtapose that with also the weak campaign financing monitoring we have in our system. In fact, I was in Doha, Qatar in December during the United Nations Conference of State Parties on the Convention Against Corruption. And part of that discussion there was the nature of political financing. Opaque funds, being used for finance, because like in Nigeria today, we have campaign finance thresholds, but who is monitoring those campaign finance thresholds? And the cost of elections keep going up, and even INEC seems to be setting the pace in that, because we saw the INEC budget recently in terms of what will be expended in elections. And so the political actors are also taking a cue. They are finding funds from everywhere, not to voter sensitization. They're not deploying those funds for that. All of the funding you see is either, in the primaries, we want to induce delegates, we want to do some things that are not really adding value to the process. And so that has to be addressed. We have to keep our campaign finance thresholds at a manageable level, so that politics is not priced away I mean, Ajia, you can have an idea tomorrow and decide you want to run for elections, but with the humongous cost, I am not sure you have that kind of war chest to be able to, go in, even though you have very clear, credible ideas that would transform people's lives. So our political process has to be rescued from this whole very grotesque reality of monetization, where everything has become so monetized, and even for you to get a party nomination form, it costs maybe the income you would have in a lifetime if you are doing certain jobs. So that whole process of pricing the political process away from people who have ideas is something we have to address. I may sound idealistic, but if we don't do that, if we don't create reforms, and frameworks, and ensure that, there is some strengthened monitoring of this kind of processes, then a lot of people that have something to contribute to our society will be excluded from governance, and then we'll turn around to complain that the country is not working and things like that. So we have to decisively address, this.
I must thank you very sincerely for your points and insights, but we still have more time to continue our discussion. I learned that Mariam George Jutubo, who has been within Garuki in recent time, has an update of what's happening on a day of election like this. So Mariam, if you're ready with your report, let's get to hear from you.
Still from polling in 016 here in Area 8, I have with me the presiding officer, Miracle, who will tell us how the process has been so far. So Miracle, can you please share with us how has the process been since inception from the time you came here?
Hi, I'm Miracle Emmanuel, the presiding officer for Ward 016, and it's smooth and fair. Me and my team were able to arrive at 7:30. We were able to put our teams together, and the election started at 8:30 on the dot. And so far, we had a moderate amount of people that came to vote, and we are still expecting more, as we are trying to make sure the election goes as smooth and as fair as possible. We are hoping that everybody will cooperate with us, and we will do our best.
So, I want to know, is there any challenge being faced? Are the beavers working?
Beavers are working perfectly. So far, we know that we have been able to work well with beavers, and we are very grateful because this process is going to make the elections fair and very nice.
Oh, okay, how cooperative are the agents?
The agents, so far, they have been very cooperative. They are doing at their best behaviors, and they are not trying to mess with elections, so we are grateful for that.
Well, you heard from the horse's mouth. Everything is going on smooth here. And that's all we have for you. It's back to you.
Thank you, Mariam. And from Mariam, we'll go to Charity. But now Charity will be giving us a situation around the situation room somewhere in the nation's capital. So Charity Zaka, let's get to hear from you what the situation is around the situation room.
Okay, so as at 7 a.m. this morning, all the monitors of the elections who are within the PPDC in a sphere was already in the field, ensuring that they monitor and keep us updated on what is going on in the field. And as at 7 o'clock, we had noticed that, of course, some of the INEC officials are not yet in the field, and then specifically in areas like Lugbe and Buari, we noticed that the officials were very late, and specifically in Lugbe primaries, we have also noticed that the beavers are not working, the officials are late, and as at about 9:45 a.m. this morning, voting have not actually started in that area. We also noticed in Buari area, in Nyanya area, as at 10 o'clock, they have also not started voting. People are just out there waiting for the officials to come in with the voting materials.
So it's very important for us at PPDC to monitor this election closely, because we're at a critical time in democracy and how Nigeria is being shaped. And for us, citizens' participation is paramount, and we need to engage the government. We need citizens to come out and vote.
Thank you very much, Charity, for that update from the Situation Room. All right, Ajanaku, you also listened to some part of what they've observed so far, which I think is giving us more angles, more perspectives to what we've said earlier. I think the first time now we're hearing the issue of beavers, but it's just a pocket of some of those anomalies. What's your take on that?
Yes, so in over 1 decade of observing elections and looking at the nature of some of these issues, we've also learned not to use pockets of issues to characterize an entire process. And so that's why data-driven observation is important when you look at election observation. And so even though it's important to flag specific issues, it's also important for the broader picture, for the broader context, to be able to highlight, how significant or insignificant that will be for the credibility of the entire process. And so I think most election observers, they have this in mind, and so when they try to escalate these issues, what they are trying to do is to call the attention of the election management body to go fix it, and not to use that as a basis to say, oh, the entire process is problematic and so not credible. So I think that point has to be made. And of course, in those specific areas where there are challenges, INEC has its own situation room. INEC from its own situation room, would definitely be responding to those realities. And to also make the point that for civil society, we are observers, but INEC on the field also has monitors. INEC has monitors that can also oversee what's happening in the process, be able to communicate. If, for example, a BVAS is not functioning and they need a replacement, those kinds of troubleshooting of the process can actually go on. And so, yeah, there's no election that will not have hitches. We remember the elections of 2000 in the US, the elections in Florida that became a big issue. So even in the most advanced democracy, you can have challenges like that. But our argument is always that the best practices or the promising practices should actually overwhelm some of these challenges. And so we should have more of good outcomes, and we should move away from this whole idea of relatively peaceful and relatively credible elections. The vote of everybody should count. Yes, there will be hitches in the process. Those hitches will be addressed as much as possible, but eventually we need citizens to have the confidence that when they come out on that day, devote their time to that process, use the power of their thumb, that is going to translate into credible outcomes. And those credible outcomes will also translate into a better future for their communities.
All right, well, I remember different platforms before the elections, INEC, in its engagement with stakeholders across board, kept reassuring. And some of the questions we asked as media people was the issue of beavers and a challenge like the one they mentioned. If it malfunctions, what happens? And the response we got was that they have technical people that are attached to some of those polling units, as well as people who will within short period of time, move into address some of these issues. Another thing we also ask, which I also want you to respond, is the issue of the hard-to-reach areas. FCT has so many of them. If you go to Abuja, for example, there are communities where, there are riverine communities where you have to canoe or take a boat to be able to access. I remember I covered one election in Abuja where that result of that word kept us for a very long time, because they said they are going to use boats, take this transportation and the other. So how can we also better address such issues with technology also evolving to assist in what we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So elections logistics have been one of the Achilles heel of INEC when it comes to general election management. And again, we have to be data driven, and I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned the question of hard to reach areas where you need extra level of meticulous planning to be able to get election materials there. And not just get election materials there, you also need to do reverse logistics. Reverse logistics in the context of, by the time you have finished, or the people have finished voting, counting and declaration of the results, your Form EC8A and all of the election materials and the ballot papers have to go back to, in terms of, the collation and also preservation of all the records, in case of a legal challenge of the elections. So one innovation that INEC has tried to do, which we find very helpful, is to think in terms of the racks, to think in terms of not over-centralizing the deployment from one point, but think in terms of registration areas, and use that as a basis to then do an onward movement of the materials. I don't want to speak for INEC, even though I believe that we should support wholeheartedly all our institutions in terms of building this democracy. And so we should be able to encourage them, especially where they are pushing against the odds to deliver these to deliver credible elections. And then we should also be able to constructively critique them where we have problems or where they fall short in terms of their mandates. And so I would only be able to conclusively make a comment on the significance of these probably after the elections, where we can now see the data in terms of how many of these polling units did the beavers malfunction, and then what was the response time? What was the response time between when, because all this data will be captured, what was the response time within when the intervention came to troubleshoot and fix the issue? And did the instances of those challenges, did it result in the disenfranchisement of voters in terms, because once there's a disruption in any aspect or there's a delay, it also affects the timing. It also affects the timing because there will be more people on the queue, and then even though the normal time is supposed to be 2:30 for voting to close, anybody on the queue beyond then cannot still be denied from voting. So the process then is delayed down the chain, towards collation and all of that. So I think this has to be discussed in the context of data, so that we don't use a few isolated cases, because even the report has not told us if there is going to be a response or a response has come. The report only told us about the challenge, but we don't even know whether, as we speak, there are ongoing efforts, to actually resolve it. And if there are ongoing efforts to resolve it, then it should be commended, because the idea is not that a challenge will not arise. The idea is that if a challenge arises, then the whole process should be resilient enough to respond to that challenge.
All right, I don't know if Serafina Okun-Omekwe is ready in Kuje Area Council with her report. If that report is ready, we'll go take it. If it is not, we'll come back and continue our conversation. All right, Serafina, over to you.
I'm at UBE polling unit 004 in Kuje. Now, this polling unit has about 3,500 registered voters. The electoral process has been peaceful. Materials, they said, was deployed adequately. However, despite the peaceful atmosphere being experienced and seamless conduct from some places visited, there seemed to be voter apathy. You know, it's really evident on this polling unit. Well, let me not go deeper. Let me bring in Mr. Johnson Sampson, who has been on ground here since 7 a.m. Hello, sir.
Good morning.
How are you? So share your experience with us. How has it been today?
It has been all right. Everything is going smoothly. But as a citizen of Nigeria, you know that one you cannot do without vote buying. People have been agitating that they get money before they vote, which are telling them that let them vote. They should just vote for their conscience and vote for the development of this nation. And I thank God some of them agree with me and they are voting. But everything is going very well. There is no riot, no agreement, nothing else.
Okay. I noticed the presence of the EFCC here, and in less than 3-5 minutes, they went away with some few persons.
Yes, as I was just coming because I helped an elderly person to check for his name, for his number. As I was coming from that unit, I made them hear that they have just arrested one person now. I saw their boss going back to town. I don't know, maybe it's not real, but I was told that they arrested one person giving money out to voters.
Mr. Johnson Sampson, many thanks. Well, studio, we'll keep updating you with happenings around the Kuje Area Council.
Thank you, Serafina. I want to urge you to remain safe in Kuje Area Council. Well, we'll now go straight away to Rabiat Shaib, who is at the FCT INEC office where a situation room has been on. So let's get the latest from the situation room of INEC.
Before 10, that's before 10 a.m. You know, once you get to 10 a.m. it's late. So I'm voting that 98%. Yes, before 10 a.m. When I called you, it was 2 minutes to 10. So we had 98%. So it's fantastic. So I'm broken the record.
Operations. Yes. Can you speak to the figures? Let him address us.
About 1,262 polling performed by 1,262.
Okay.
When 1,557 opened by the 2031 to the 30.
To 10.
Out of 1,000, out of 2,000.
Out of 2,000,
the percentage is 98% yes. Overall. So, which is fantastic. Yes, as 10 o'clock, 98%. 98%. Which is very good. By every standard.
Almost every year.
Okay, what about Mark? That is percentage.
No, this is the general. So all of them perform very well. Even the areas we are thinking that problem quite fantastic. Even with the distance, they use Keke Napep to meet up with the logistics.
What of the riverine areas in
That's no problem at all. They were all accessible.
Everything will go. I'm ready to go right. So where and where are we?
I don't know what I tell you.
So where are we going?
Good to see you.
Okay, before we comment on some of this report, Ramatu Abdullahi is live from Abuja Area Council. So Ramatu, let's get to meet you again.
To Abuja, this is polling unit, Central Primary School polling unit, and the voters here are much more enthusiastic on their civic responsibility. They are all out exercising their franchise, and the conduct has been very peaceful without with little technical hitching. The reverse machines have been working very well, and in fact, the islet has a backup if the one breaks down. But about that there is the civic responsibility. That I just want to polling unit where I met with the PDP candidate for the Alhaji Kodabo expressed satisfaction.
All right, we sincerely apologize, Ramatu. I think we can't take you further, but I think you started well before the audio, went. Okay, you're stable now. All right, Ramatu, let's get to hear more from you, please.
Okay, as I was saying, I said the election in Abuja has been peaceful. There was a considerable level of turnout of voters, and they have been conducting themselves peacefully. In the places I have visited, such as the polling unit, I met with the candidate of PDP, where he also expressed satisfaction turnout and the coordination of the exercise by INEC. I also spoke to the incumbent chairman, who is the APC candidate for this election. The same thing, he applauded the process and was all happy for the turnout of the voters. So far so good, it has been peaceful in Abuja. This place where I am at the moment is the Central Primary School polling unit in Abuja, and the voters are conducting themselves peacefully without any hitting. That's the situation for now.
Thank you very sincerely, Ramatu, with that update from Abuja, faraway Abuja, I want to call it. And we're very happy that you are still very much safe and strong to report what's happening from Abuja. We hope to see you again when you have more updates for us. And let me come back to my guest who has been patiently also watching with me some of those reports. Let's begin with the update from Rabiat Shaib, where we saw earlier the top managers of INEC, led by the chairman himself, Joy Shamupitanesi, and other national commissioners monitoring the election. Does that also send any good signal for us?
Absolutely. I think it's just as if I knew what was happening when I mentioned that they would have their situation room, and from there they would be keeping close tabs on what's happening on the field. And so there are situations where challenges occur, and then even from the situation room they are able to say, let's intervene here, let's ensure something is done about this situation. If a BVAS is not functioning in maybe a group of polling stations, they can always intervene. And I kept on hearing 98%. So I assume that was the logistics deployment that they achieved 98%. And somebody also mentioned on the audio that the riverine areas were also able to receive materials. So if in an exam you score 98%, while not saying you should not care about the 2%, it shows that there is overwhelming success in the logistics deployment. But we make no mistake about the fact that INEC logistics alone will not be the indicator to score this election. Like our organization, GRACO, said in our statement yesterday, we want impeccable logistics, and I think that box is ticked also. But we also want that impeccable logistics to be complemented with a very good turnout. Right now, I can't comment on the data about turnout. It will take after the declaration of results for us to be able to sit down and tabulate the data. But I think, given the history of elections in the FCT, anything less than a 25% turnout would not be something I can applaud, because it then means that the logistics you deployed, the voters you were targeting, and when you look at the cost of elections, people talk about cost per voter. So it means as you deploy, you are targeting every voter that will come to that polling unit to vote, and that's what you use to make your cost. And so if the voters don't turn out after you deployed, it's also a challenge. It means that the money budgeted for those voters that didn't turn out is money down the drain, because you will not be able to use those ballot papers in another elections. So I hope to see that turnout at least, if we say the average participation the last time out was 9%, we should be targeting something in the region of 25 to 30%. But maybe if it falls anything above 20, we can still say it's manageable. But anything below that would mean that we have a lot of work to do in the build-up to 2027 general elections.
You would agree with me that in our past elections, some of the areas where we had problems or challenges arising were around when there are were issues of beavers not functioning and people who have come out to vote and they were being disenfranchised. Before you know it, degenerated to issues. But with what we saw now around the election management team, I think it's one way of assuring the voters out there that whatever challenge that might have arisen, they will be able to nip it in the bud. But I think it is time now for us to take a breather, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation at the moment.
Right.
Right now, I'm at Kotokuwo 2, UBE Primary School, Gwagwalada area council.
From Kwali, we are polling unit 003, Kwali Town Hall, and the election process has commenced in earnest.
The verification exercise just commenced at exactly 8:30 a.m.
The total number of registered voters in this polling unit is 772. And for this election, the people of this polling unit have expressed their enthusiasm.
Some residents along the Karianya axis seem to be going about their normal
Actually, we had a sleepless night. Things were moving really well. There's no ranking, there's no issue at all.
The election will be monitored by the Electoral Operations Support Center established here at the INEC FCT to monitor the exercise in terms of...
How do you feel voting for the first time?
I feel good and emotional.
The process is fine, easy and simple.
So far, so good. The preparation from the arrival of the materials and the conduct of the INEC staff.
Well, more updates coming to you later. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you for staying tuned to the Fct Decide studios, reaching you from the Unity Station, Channel 5 Abuja, and the network service of the NTA. Of course, it is a day that the Fct people are deciding who leads them as far as the council, chairman and councillors are concerned. And like we say, it is a defining moment for them to choose their leaders in the next dispensation. And of course, what the Fct people are doing today is adding to our democratic journey of getting to that destination where we say, yes, Nigeria is truly a democratic nation. And of course, my guest has been so wonderful. Amsfree Ajanako is the Executive Director, Grassroots Center for Rights and Civic Orientation. Of course, he's been adding value to our conversation here, adding to what we're seeing from the field, and he's still here with us. I want to welcome you back.
Thank you so much for the warm reintroduction.
All right. Well, like I was saying earlier before we went on the break, the support the INEC top management is providing is giving reassurance to voters out there to say no, whatever challenge we'll be able to solve them, which you agree with me that I think like you say, it will be too early for us to conclude that everything has been solved. So we'll get more feelers and more updates for us to be able to know that. But I also want us to quickly look at one issue. We saw earlier in the report by Serafina Rokun from Kuje. I don't know if you heard where she was talking about the security picking somebody. Probably he would have gone foul of the laws or regulations around, the election polling unit.
I think that's a very commendable outcome in this election. Again, it happened in one polling unit. We've not heard of such incidents in terms of arrests of people engaging in vote buying and a continuation of the monetization of the electoral process at the polling units. Now, vote buying is one of the elephants in the room in our Nigerian elections. And what is driving vote buying? There have been several research, academic studies, and position papers on the drivers of vote buying. Some people argue, or some theorists argue, that vote buying is a result of lack of trust in the electoral process. And so when people feel that, oh, my vote will not count, then if somebody says I should sell the votes to them, or I should vote for them, for money, it becomes something, they will do without any compunction. Now, in our attempt to sensitize citizens at the grassroots level, we try to use a counterintuitive approach to get the people to understand that if the vote was not valuable, if the vote will not count, then somebody will not be interested in buying it. And so we try to stay within that context of the economy analysis of the vote to even say if the vote was not of any value, nobody will be interested in buying it. So that someone is ready to part with some money shows that that vote has a power and that vote has a value, and you should not trade it away. Another analysis we have also tried to do in terms of sensitizing voters, and my organization has at our own costs, without funding from INEC, without funding from anybody, at our own cost, we've organized some of these sessions, civic outreaches in communities like we did in Gwarimpa in the build-up to this election. We'll also be able to explain to people that when you look at the amounts that are being offered, for the votes, so you divide an amount like 2,000 naira across 4 years. We use that to provoke a sense of the futility of even doing that for, the electorate to engage in that. So if maybe you take 2,000 naira and that is what you want to sell your vote for in the next 4 years, that the person who bought the vote would govern, and don't forget that the person would not even reckon with the voter that has sold the vote because he already paid for it. And so we try to get the people to understand that. But ultimately, we make no mistake also about the fact that the economic realities, which is also a fallout of the kinds of leaders that are elected, also plays a role in vote buying. And where people are faced with extreme levels of poverty, where people are faced with extreme levels of deprivation, it then seems preposterous for you who are, maybe you are well off, you can afford your 3 square meters, to come and tell them that that particular moment they should not sell their vote. So we also advocate, and then we sensitize the people to understand that in your voting, you can also put in place leaders that will address your economic issues. The leaders should be able to come up with policies that will address poverty. They should be able to come up with policies that should address livelihoods. And so we try then to connect voting to beyond the vote issues. And so that's how we try to deal with it at that level. But of course, there is the dimension of moral suasion, and also there's a dimension of enforcement. And that's why we talk about the voice and the teeth in discussions around the corruption of the voting process. In countering it, you talk about the voice and the teeth. The voice is trying to convince as much as possible, trying to educate, trying to do the enlightenment, trying to do the civic orientation. That is on one hand. But where there are actors that still insist that they want to reduce the sacredness of the vote, because the vote is also sacred.
Sure.
The vote is also a personification of the aspiration of people. So the vote is not just paper, it is a personification of the aspirations of people, the future they want, for their children. So we cannot, under any stretch of the imagination, allow actors who we want to remove from that sacredness. And that is why the enforcement institutions are there to arrest, pick up, detain, investigate anybody. And now I've seen it in previous elections where people with bags of money that came to buy votes were arrested and all of that. That on its own is commendable, because it's going to send a message and it's going to ensure there's a form of deterrence against that kind of behavior. But having said that, we also see that when some of these people are arrested and then they are brought before a process of accountability to account for their actions, we don't get to see that translating into convictions. We don't get to see that translating into punishment, that you then say that, oh, an example has been set. Yeah, you have a very few instances where there were people who were convicted for electoral malpractices. So we should now also be able to see that a case like this should be followed through. The FCC has picked up the person. They should diligently, prosecute the person, and if found guilty, in line with the rule of law and the principles of natural justice, the person should be made to face the full weight of the law if it is indeed found to have engaged in that practice.
I want to agree with your thoughts on that, and I believe civil society organizations do have a role to play in ensuring that we get to that logical, conclusion of ensuring that whoever goes, foul of the law, pays dearly, for it. But for now, let's take a special report on the creation of the FCT area councils. If it is ready, let's go take it.
The FCT Area Council's administration is the third tier of government, and the FCT, just like the local government in the states of the Federation, the Area Councils is the government that oversees the affairs of the rural dwellers. The political structure of the FCT Area Councils: there is a legislative arm comprising elected councillors that are entrusted with the responsibility of enacting bylaws for the overall interest of the populace. Although In the FCT, there is no state but a federal legislature representing the only two constituencies at the National Assembly. They are South and Ahmad Buhari federal constituencies. This is in addition to only a senator representing the entire FCT. In the FCT, there are 6 area councils, which include the Abuja Municipal Area Council, AMAC, Buhari, Gwagwalada, Kuje, Kwali, and Abaji area councils. These councils are responsible for grassroots governance, community development, and local administration, operating under the supervision of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, headed by the FCT Minister. 35 years after its creation, the FCT has grown significantly in line with the dreams of its founding fathers.
FCT has come this far, and democratically, I think in the last 20 years or so, we've been having election here in, here out, 3 years in and out, and this time around we're able to have a 4-year tenure for our councillors and chairmen. So I think retrospectively, area councils in the FCT has seen chairmen, has seen councillors, and we're again going to see another set of councillors and chairmen.
The creation of area councils in the Federal Capital Territory has actually brought about massive development. It has created awareness, brought about the people knowing what government is and what government should be. Particularly Buhari Area Council, that was created way back in 1996, if I'm correct. It has brought about tremendous development.
With the area councils, satellite towns have been expanded, with their roles becoming increasingly critical in managing development infrastructure and community needs. Today, Abuja, stakeholders say, remains a powerful symbol of national unity, planned development, and Nigeria's political identity. As the nation's capital continues to grow, the role of the area councils and residents remain vital in shaping the future for the territory. Hawagimba, NTA News.
Thank you very much, Hawa, and I want to agree with you. The creation of the area councils have brought about developments around the grassroots, which I think is very important, even though the people of the FCT are still yearning for additional numbers of the area councils to be able to get more development across. Well, while that report was on, we have another guest joining us, Honorable Kovie Andrew Epetuko. He is the Director General Coalition to Transform Nigeria. I think he's a known voice and face on our programs, and he finds time to join us on the Fct Decide studios. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, well, it's been an election day, and I don't know if you've gone out to observe, to see for yourself the process around some of the polling units. Let's get to hear from you.
Yeah, it's been a very wonderful moment today, and to be very sincere with you, I want to commend the INEC, the security agencies, the FCT people, you know, for conducting themselves in a very peaceful and seamless manner. I think the election so far, looking at the areas I have personally witnessed, the election is going on smoothly and peacefully.
So you invariably say it's measures to your expectation?
Yeah, you know, the other time we were here, we talked about expectations, and you know, from the activities so far that we saw before the election, you know, I sensed it that certainly this election is going to be very seamless and peaceful, and it will be credible.
I like your opening statement, which suggests that we're very optimistic that the process at the end of the day, will measure up with the expectations of not only FCT residents but Nigerians who are looking forward, to ensuring that our democratic and electoral process keep growing, and we'll get there someday. Try to talk about best practices around some of what we do. All right, before you came in, we've had a lot of conversation around some of the reports we've been receiving from our foot soldiers, I want to call our reporters, who are in all the 6 area councils, in addition to those we've also deployed to monitor our security situation and also bringing us side attractions. We saw one report talking about some who are taking advantage to make business, to make money. So I think NTA is not leaving any stone unturned to ensure that we bring to your viewing pleasure all that is happening around the polling units and also the area councils. All right, now I learned that there is another report that might interest us to see one of the oldest voters, and where precisely, let's get to know from the report.
Ni no muka yi fara an zaben Sardauna abin da na samu nada da manyan suka zo suka ce an zo za a ba da mulkin kai a 1960 muka tafi muka ce alhamdulillah ma samu yancin kanmu muka yi zabe a lokacin muka yi bismillah mun gama da alhamdulillah na ya wuce su shagari sun zo sun haye mu ne muka yi kamfe na shagari a nan Abuja suka yi nasu sun zo sun wuce addu'an da zai yi mulki zai yi kyau a ga ma manyan ku rike amana na Allah aka yi rike amana na Allah ta wannan lafiya ba buga nan shine mulki ba a bi dokan Allah a bi dokan annabi a bi dokan rayuwa na lokaci.
Of course, on NTA, every voice matters, and we just got the voice of an elder statesman, a senior citizen who is not staying behind but wants to be part of the process that will bring in another set of leaders, sharing his experience with us on when he started voting, talking about the period of, according to him, the Sardauna time, which I think is the first republic. You would imagine how many years from then till now, and he's still participating. He's not giving up, despite what we call shortcomings in our system. But I think the Babadi, I want to call him, is still encouraging us, the younger ones, to be part of the process. And I also heard him talking about advising those that will at the end of the day to do the needful to assist the masses and bring about needed development. I think that is a good one. We hope to get more reactions from all. Okay, the FCT minister, I learned his report is in line now. His next for us to take. So if the report is ready, let's quickly take it before we come back to our guest in the studio who will watch with us. Okay. That was the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, also monitoring to see how the election is going in the Federal Capital Territory, where he presides as the minister and also representing the president, there. All right, let me come back to my guest here so that we'll continue our conversations. Now, government has a responsibility to ensure that the election is credible. We just saw the FCT minister there, yes, a stakeholder you may say, but he's also the minister of the territory because it's all under his account to ensure that every life is protected and everything goes, right. Let me start with Ajanaku, your take on that.
Yes, to the extent to which partisanship does not come into such processes, and then state resources is not used to affect the democratic outcomes, then of course, they have a responsibility. He has a responsibility. And I think it was commendable in the build-up to this election that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu tried to set the tone in terms of the kind of election that we should have. He made it very clear that we should have an electoral process in which the supremacy of the votes of the electorate should count, and that the security agencies should conduct themselves in a manner that would ensure the voters have the confidence to go out there to vote. Some people may argue that it is rhetoric. For me, that is the role of a statesman, because sometimes you have to remove the hat of a politician and assume the role of a statesman, knowing that both APC, PDP, ADC, all the partisan actors are still within the protection of the president as the father of the nation. So I think that is commendable. Of course, when it comes to the level of political squabbles and all of that, the politicians know how to do their thing in terms of they are disagreeing to agree. And of course, we even saw in the build-up to these elections that there were different kinds of alignments, people crossing from one party to the other and all of that. But our own responsibility in terms of civil society is to keep a close watch on the process to ensure that there is no element of partisanship that undermines the credibility of the votes, and people can come out and they can make their choice freely. So to that extent, nobody would have any quarrel with that. And I also believe strongly that the role of the institutions I mentioned earlier is critical in terms of, for example, campaign finance monitoring. How do we ensure, for example, that state resources, because state resources include vehicles, are not also being used to influence political outcomes? And all of these things are things that we have to add together if we want to talk about credible polls that really reflect the voices of the people, because you also have to have a level playing field for all the political parties to be able to operate. And so I'm not saying there's any case like that now, but I'm just saying that part of the guardrails we should put in place is to also to ensure that we have a seamless process in which every political competitor has the level playing field to be able to contest, for power.
All right, Honorable Kovier, I want to also, stay with you, on that question of government giving us that, ambience of peaceful atmosphere. That's why we saw security all over the place to ensure that everything goes on smoothly. The minister is not just sitting back, in his house, but he's also going out because he has a responsibility as a, government official representative of the president to ensure that everything is, conducted under a peaceful atmosphere. What's your take on that?
Yeah, to be very frank with you, the responsibility of having a successful election is for the entire citizens. But at the same time, we know that there are people who are saddled with specific responsibility to ensure orderliness, to ensure peace and to ensure security of citizens. And you see, election is not just a gathering of people, in the form of entertainment or whatever. It is a gathering of people where precise choices are made as to those who govern them for a period of time. So when it comes to a matter like this, it's highly sensitive in the sense that these are the group of people who are going to be taking responsibility on your behalf on how the resources of the area council are managed. So it is not a time that every well-meaning FCT citizens should take for granted. It is a serious moment, and for me, I think it's a serious business. You see how everybody is conducting themselves, even the business people coming in to ensure that, people's needs are met right there at the polling units, and you see the electorate coming all out to ensure that their civic right is protected, and the most beautiful thing of it all is when government has given us that enabling confidence and environment to ensure a hitch-free election, just like my colleague rightly stated. You see, we must commend Mr. President because, to be very sincere with you, he has to a large extent given citizens confidence as far as expectation of a credible election is concerned. Then also we just saw the FCT minister, who is also taking his time as the current minister of FCT to ensure that he reached out to the different polling units and see how far the elections are going. I think it is also a worthy commendation for him because ordinarily as the minister you should know what is happening within the territory where you are governing and take responsibility when there is necessity. So sincerely speaking, I want to commend all the participants, including the civil society group, because just like I started with, it's a collective responsibility of everybody if truly we must see a seamless, free and credible elections in our country.
All right, we all saw the earlier reports of the elder statesman there. How encouraging, I want to stay with you. And, you think that is to younger people who sometimes might be, feeling, out of the scheme of things now, not being part of the process. You're supposed to go outside the franchise provided you have your voter's card and you are a registered voter in a particular environment. Seeing that elder statesman, I think, is encouraging. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, I agree with you, and at the same time, I want to make it very clear. You see, when it comes to matters of who governs you, it is not the responsibility of any particular age group. It is the generality of the entire people within the community, within the local area council, and within the state to ensure that they decide who governs them. So I'm not surprised at seeing the elder statesman so cheerful, so excited, because he's happy that yes, this is a moment for us to decide who becomes our leader. He's always cheerful at this moment. It's just unfortunate that the only sad moment is when results are announced, because sincerely speaking, when the time results are announced and it didn't go in your favor, I'm sure your whole cheerfulness will just disintegrate, and you have no other choice but to support whoever finally emerged as the winner of the election.
Okay, Ajanako, I want to ask you two questions in one. Looking at the action of the elder statesman, how encouraging you think is that to our younger ones? Now, he made mention of the issue of at the end of the day, some will be smiling and some will not be happy. I like a point you made earlier, I didn't forget, where you talk about the winner-take-all kind of politics we play here. How can we better improve in terms of, say, okay, if you score certain percentage in an election like this, you are entitled to form part of the government so that it disabuses the minds of opposition, so that together we move and develop instead of trying to bring down the roof.
Honestly, these are very important questions for democratic consolidation and democratic development generally. So for the very first one about we don't know his age, but probably a nonagenarian or a septuagenarian, not so sure. I think it's very encouraging, and it passes the message very squarely, and it's a human story, very human angle story, about the fact that if someone at that age can summon the resolve, the courage, it reinforces the power of the vote. That the vote is not just a piece of paper, that the vote is a reflection of your aspiration, the future you want for yourself, for your unborn children, because development moves, from one step to the other. This generation passes the baton to the next generation, and then it takes me to the aspects of the youth, and I hope I have enough time to answer the question.
Help us summarize. Help us summarize.
We have a youth demographic currently that is very much alienated from our democratic process, and we have that demographic that is feeling, oh, the process is against us, it's not reflecting our wishes, and they are staying away. But I think that message from the elder statesman actually reminds everybody that you don't have an excuse, to sit back and complain. You don't just agonize, you also have to organize. You have to get yourself into the process to be able to influence the outcomes, and the way you do that is to come out and vote. We have restated this message over and over, and I believe that in some context the impact of that message is beginning to sink in. And so the other point, what was the last?
Winner take all.
Yeah, the winner take all syndrome of our politics. We need political reforms to address that. We need very far-reaching political reforms, and the political reforms will do it in a way that we've seen some some presidents that got into power in this country. They formed a government of national unity. President Yar'Adua, for example, he formed a government of national unity because he felt there were people within the opposition who also had something to contribute. Yes. So that we run democracy on the basis of opposition politics, but the opposition also still has something to contribute, hold the government accountable, and that's why in some countries you even have shadow, a shadow government, that is backing up, or in a sense providing some constructive engagement with the current government that is in place. So we need such models to be able to harness the talents and the energies of everybody, and then also ensure that there's stability and everybody is carried along, so that we don't have a democracy in which we spend maybe 4 years with disaffection, everybody's fighting, struggling at all costs to be able to win the election. So that would involve some constitutional reform. For example, in in FCT as we speak today, there are councillors that will be there's nothing wrong in saying that if you're able to get like 30% of the votes, you should be able to produce probably the speaker of the of the legislative house. So that also gives your party, and it will make the political parties to
have a sense of belonging.
Yes, and then they will also mobilize. Yes. But you see, right now, political parties don't mobilize voters because they just feel, oh, the simple majority were there. But if they know that even if we lose the bigger prize in the politics, we can still get some other thing whereby we can push our ideas, then you see them mobilizing more voters to come and participate in the process, because political parties actually, they have a bigger responsibility, they have a more immediate responsibility to get people to the polling units, because they are the ones that will be voted for, and they are the ones that will eventually have access to political power in that sense.
Thank you very much, Ajanako. Now let me get back to Honorable Kovie. Now, area councils in the FCT are equivalents of local governments in Nigeria. And you would agree with me that politics there is grassroots, is local. You have so many local issues to contend with. Now, these new sets of leaders that are coming, how do you think we should best approach issues of governance at that level in trying to justify the confidence that people are, out today to go vote on your behalf at the end of the day, say, oh, you're not disappointing them?
To be very frank, politics in its true sense is done at the local level, which we consider either at the area council like we have in the FCT or at the local government level like we have in other states. You see, without the locals, as far as I'm concerned, there is no politics, because nobody play politics in Abuja. All the activities of politics you see are done at the local level. It is the collective decision of the people that you see gathered in Abuja. And that is what happens all across the various states. There can be no governor without the locals, because the polling units are rightly located at the locals. That is where the whole electorate gather to decide who they want to be their leader, whether at the local government level, the state, and even at the federal level. You see, so it's very particular that we must take cognizance when it comes to the local government level politically. And this is one area the other time I commended Mr. President for this local government autonomy, because a lot of people may not really understand the impact and the input of that decision by Mr. President that has brought so much awareness and certain level of confidence, to the people to say, if you, I almost made an example the other day. You see, for the first time, I have been participating in politics for decades, but for the first time in my local government, let me use my local government as an example, I see a local government chairman inaugurating projects as is in a bid to celebrate his 1 year in office. Unprecedented project, brand new local government secretariat, a world-class local government secretariat. I can't count numbers of roads. That local government has been there for decades. For the first time, he fenced the entire local government secretariat. Hospitals were built, and all these were achieved in just 1 year in office. And I begin to wonder, I wish we have this sense of belonging at the local government level all these years. Imagine the level of development that would have gone. You see, many a times I make people understand that once the local government develops, Nigerians sincerely have developed. Because there is no development even in the Abuja that majority of the people come together. Today, we are witnessing the area council election. It is majorly the responsibility of the area council to develop their council. And the council falls under a perspective of a local government. And under the local government, take for instance, Amakna, this is where you have almost majority of activities of governance. You have the National Assembly, you have the Presidential Villa, in fact, you have the highest level of judiciary, almost all the deciding factors, the CBN and all that, the INEC headquarters, you all have all of them here. Imagine when there is no qualitative local government governance. What is the fate of these other bigger agencies that we have? So this is why I really want to commend Mr. President. You asked a question the other time, and I just, my colleagues have thrown a lot of light on it, but I just want to also chip in something. When you talk about the winner takes it all, you see, it's very pertinent to see that we still play politics of sentiments, because it's out of sentiments that is where you get this mentality of, oh, if it's within me and my people. But I also want to use this medium to also commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because we have seen how he was able to galvanize technocrats who are not part of his government. In fact, people who did not even work for him, people who openly worked against him, but he found certain qualities in them that he felt, no, if these people could go this far, If these people could manifest this level of intelligence, I think we need them in the government. They have something to offer. Even though they didn't work with us, they worked against us, politics is gone, this is the time of governance. I think this is the mentality every one of us must begin to incorporate. You must differentiate elections from governance. Because this is where some of us are still having a challenge. We bring in the mentality of election and we want to impose it in governance, then we become selective. We become partisan, we become, sentimental to, oh, if he's not with us, it should not be part of us. I think I must commend Mr. President, and I hope that majority of the politicians in Nigeria will see things from this perspective and emulate an attitude of always ensuring that it is better to work together than never.
And the word is inclusiveness. So when we have inclusivity around, our democratic process, I think it has, a way of bringing everyone together. And while we begin to look at it from the lens of development for our country, rather than the opposition, some people will still play opposition from the beginning of the 4 years till the end of it, which I think, like you said, there should be difference between a time of, politicking and then governance, which I think is good for us. But I want to come back to Ajanaku. I have one question I want to ask you. He talked about bringing governance, bringing infrastructure developments at the local council. You would agree with me also, I must say this, that we don't see much around our local government in Nigeria and not in the FCT now. How can, and most times when you ask questions, they will tell you there are local problems emanating from local people that the chairman or the local council is facing. Now that is competing with the resources to develop infrastructure. I don't know if you have an answer of how we should go about it for especially those new set of local council chairmen that will be coming in the FCT.
Absolutely, Ajia. I have an answer because this is, for me, one of the core missions of...
Okay, sorry, please hold on before you hit that question. Yeah. Let's quickly go to Rabiat, who has been with the INEC, monitoring team from INEC to the situation room. So let's get to hear from her an update. Rabiat, over to you.
All right, thank you, Ajia. So early this morning, the INEC chairman, Joash Amopiton, arrived to lead the National Commissioners as the resident electoral commissioner, Aminu Kasimu Idris, for on-ground monitoring of polling units across the Abuja Municipal Area Council. So his first stop was the situation room at the INEC FCT office, where he got important information about the deployment of election materials, and as at 10 a.m. about 94% of deployment of materials were recorded by INEC in their electoral support room here. And from there on, he moved on to various polling units across the Abuja Municipal Area Council, polling unit 17 at 08 at Area 2, the National Library 2, where he was able to interact with polling unit officials as well as voters on the queue. Polling unit officials were able to give him feedback on the use of beavers, and from all indications that we received on field with him today, the beavers worked satisfactorily, with accreditation taking 30 seconds or less for most of the voters on queue, and most of the voters too experienced quick voting procedures too. So the INEC chairman Joash to get feedback from polling unit officials as well as voters on how the voting process is going on. The only issue that was raised was the security issue in Abaji Area Council, of which the chairman assured FCT residents that it was promptly tackled. Yes. Hear me?
Thank you very much, Rabiat. I don't know if you can hear me. I want to ask that beyond what you have told us, in the situation room now, what is actually happening now?
Okay, in the situation room now, I just got back from the on-ground monitoring exercise. But before I left, what was happening was the collation of real-time data and from various polling units across the area council. Like I said earlier in my report, the situation room here will also act as a way to incident report and to be able to rapidly respond to this report in order to make sure that the voting process goes smoothly. So as of now, the situation room here is still receiving information from the various polling units, feedback from the polling unit officials, from field officials, and they are able to address any situation that arrive. They are still tallying figures, but so far the report that they've gotten so far was satisfactory use of rivers as well as calmness, around the polling units within the Federal Capital Territory. Then another issue that was raised was voter apathy. There are some areas in the Abuja Municipal Area Council that we visited today with the INEC chairman, where they recorded moderate to low turnout of voters. But we should still keep in mind that the voting period is still very active, and we'll get the full picture once voting has ended.
I must thank you very, very sincerely, Rabiat, for confidently giving us that update. I want to urge you to continue to remain very active as well, and also keeping your eyes on the ball to get us more information, those ones that are breaking and those ones that are still technical, for you to break it down for us. We're very proud of what you're doing out there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, our correspondent there, Rabiat, with the INEC, and I think she's done, summarily well to tell us what, had happened from when she got there, and the activity around the INEC chairman and some officials of INEC FCT, which I think we saw earlier with you. And so I think all things being equal, INEC is on top of its game for now, and while we await other assessments and outcomes, in this election. So you're about making a point on the solutions to infrastructure demand and also resources at the local level, where you have challenge of individual problem and the problem at the local council.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm very pointed about this, because this is one of the areas of my organization has been engaged in, because we believe that, like Honorable Kovie said, if you get it right at the local level, you are going to unleash the potential of this country. And if you look at a country like China, that was able to pull over 780 million people out of poverty, it did this because of what they were able to achieve at the local level. In fact, officials at the local level, if you are not able to meet up with certain key indicators for development, then there is no two ways about it. You have failed. And they prioritize things that will pull people out of poverty. One is education. Two is health care. Three, access to safe drinking water. And that was how they used that model. And I like the point that in Supreme Court make a categorical pronouncement for local government, which has now put the issue on the front burner of debate, even though we still have a lot of resistance at the level of the governors, and we are yet to see the full benefits of that. I would argue that this would be one of the legacies of the Tinubu administration in the first term. That move to go to the Supreme Court and seek an interpretation on financial autonomy. But having said that, what have we seen happening at the local government level? Have we seen sufficient levels of transparency? Have we seen sufficient levels of accountability to drive the development trajectory? So if somebody tells you that there are some local issues versus the issues of the local government, the question you ask is that, what are those local issues? What's the nature of that local issue? If somebody is coming to you as a local government chairman to ask for maybe school fees for their children or rent, it is an indicator of something. It means
contribution and
exactly. It means that you have not created processes that would give, if people can go to their farms and they farm because there's a rural feeder road that will bring their goods from the farm, they will not come to your local government to be asking for rent and things like that. So at the heart of what we should do to deal with this issue is the question of transparency and accountability. Every local government should have a budget, and that budget should speak to the priorities. We are not saying they will have money to solve all the problems, but a situation in which you budget more to buy SUVs than you are thinking for education, a situation in which you budget more for frivolous trips abroad for the wives of local government officials when you are not thinking about primary health care, those are the kinds of things that will create a drawback. And it is also very fundamental. I'm sorry I'm taking a little more time. It's also very fundamental because we're not talking about a season of tax reform. The president has put in place tax reform, which many citizens are resisting. The reason people are resisting the tax reform is that they are saying we have not seen these resources working for our benefit. And the local governments have a critical role to play in this. And so when the president came out the other time and said, please, governors and local government chairmen, wet the ground, he was saying essentially that you are getting now more resources from the center. And those resources should not be used for frivolities, for God's sake. Those resources should be applied to the areas where people are feeling the pinch the most. There are many local governments where just a passable road that would create economic opportunity is not there. And those are the issues they should be focusing on. Those are the issues they should tailor their budget to address. They should be able to tailor their budget to address healthcare. But so far, we are not seeing them doing that. And in the FCT, for example, I mentioned earlier in our discussion that for close to 6 months, children were not in school because of a teacher's strike. And this is supposed to be the responsibility of the area councils. At the point, the health centers were on strike. So if at the end of the day there is a huge quantum of resources coming from the center going to the area councils and by extension the rest of Nigeria, the local governments, and the citizens are not feeling the benefits, you then ask the question, why are people not coming out to vote? Those are some of the drivers. Those are some of the factors that should be addressed. So I would push for more accountability, more transparency. In fact, we should digitize the budget of every local government. It should be available online. I should be able to go to my local government and see, oh, this is what my local government is spending on healthcare. This is what they are going to spend on a feeder road, on a rural road. Not that they will just be purchasing SUVs all over the place, as if that's the only thing. I mean, the world is moving on. Nigeria should. And you see, Nigeria is a champion of democracy. In fact, when Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa was, giving a speech in the independence period, he talked about Nigeria's manifest destiny. And the people of this country are not asking for too much. They just need the basics to be able to unleash their potential.
Sure.
People just want to be able to go to farm, hard work, do their hard work, farm, and be able to, that's the simple thing people are asking for. It's not too much to ask. And the electoral process is a key vehicle to achieving that.
Honorable Kovi, I'll come back to you, but not immediately, because one of our correspondents, Hawa Gimba from Buhari Area Council, is standing by. By the time we're done with, I'll come back to you, because there is a second leg to the answer he's providing, which I will ask you. So, Hawa Gimba, if you're ready for us, take it up from here.
Actually standing at Usuman Ward 0056, low turnout of FCT residents who are expected to come out to cast their ballots. But standing with me right now is a resident who has come to cast his ballot, and he has one or two things to say about this particular polling unit where we have low turnout of voters. Hello, can you tell us your experience so far here?
My experience so far in this polling unit is about lack of awareness, and the people has not given a conductive most of returnings of coming out and vote. But some people having such laxity, or they have laxity of coming out because of things that there's a lot of problems that they're going to face of casting votes in their polling unit. Okay. And the factors that's affecting this polling unit is a new polling unit. Most of the people has been transferred their registration to another set of polling units.
Okay, so what do you think the INEC will have done before transfer?
The INEC will have to synthesize and come on either on Monday, Tuesday. This registration was being placed yesterday, and most of the people came yesterday. That's not this kind of registration there. They have to go down by Monday or Tuesday to make sure the conducted free and fair, that everybody should know where he's going to vote and where he's going to casting his own vote.
Thank you. From all indication, from the person you just listened to, more sensitization from INEC, and even those who are expected to sensitize the residents on how to vote and how to check their names on the list. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hawa, with that update from Buhari. Yes, but I know before now, INEC this time around, I think for the first time, through what we've been able to gather, before the election, came up with the idea of releasing the updates of names and polling units where individual voters are supposed to go, participate. Okay, but I think this is one peculiar issue that INEC should be able to address. Well, I will quickly go on a break. I will still come back. That question is still, in my mind. So, but at this juncture, we'll just go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation.
Right now, I'm at Kotokuwo 2, UBP Primary School, Area Council.
From Kwani, we are polling unit 003, Kwani Town Hall, and the election process has commenced in earnest.
The verification exercise just commenced at exactly 8:30 a.m.
The total number of registered voters in this polling unit is 772. And for this election, the people of this polling unit have expressed their enthusiasm.
However, residents of Karu here seem not to be adhering to this restriction, as you can still see movement in numbers.
Still from polling in 016 here in Area 8, I have with me the presiding officer, Miracle, who will tell us how the process has been so far.
Actually, we had a sleepless night, and things were moving really well. There's no ranking, there's no issues at all.
The election will be monitored by the Electoral Operations Support Center established here at the INEC FCT to monitor the exercise in terms of...
How do you feel voting for the first time?
I feel good and emotional.
The process is fine, easy and simple.
So far, so good. The preparation from the arrival of the materials and the conduct of the INEC staff is there.
Well, more updates coming to you later. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you for choosing to stay tuned with NTA on a day like this. And where else to get such updates and breaking news and getting the letters, if not with the NTA? Of course, trust that commitment to always do it, and you can't beat the rich, I must say. All right, my guests are still here with me in the studio, and before the break, we were making serious points talking about development around the area councils and some of the challenges. Now, Honorable Covey, like I said, I want to ask you, he has mentioned the need for accountability, the need for all eyes to be on the goal, the ball, to ensure that we create more accountability around the resources of the local council. But for somebody like you who understand this local politics, you also agree with me that the demands of the local people are overwhelming. Sometimes the demand of the local people might not be rude, it might be naming ceremony. I want to marry new wife. And now, so the local council chairman or council have some of those issues to go, and this is the local politics that we're talking about. How can we best manage developing infrastructure and solving the little local people's problems?
To be very sincere with you, you can notice I'm smiling because honestly, it's so funny, it's so disheartening when you begin to wonder how people reason sometimes. You know, if you are close to some of these people, certainly you pity for them. I just can't understand why citizens think that their personal and individual responsibility is tied to politicians to meet. They bring all the demands that they are supposed to put in place, measures to take care of, and they accumulate them and bring them before the leaders. Let us use the local government level for instance. Now, in such a situation, how many people do we have in a community, for instance? How many people do we have? Okay, let's us begin to break it down politically from the units down to the wards, then to the local government. If all these people bring in their problem, are you still sure there will still be resources left for the local government to do roads? Certainly they won't. Many a times we talk about election. The cost of running an election, I am not talking on the side of the INEC now, I'm talking of the part of the politicians. The cost of running an election is so alarming that after putting that effort, energy and resources, and you finally wins an election, it is almost like you are detached from the people. Because sometimes even if the people come to you, you get angry. Because you wonder, what are you still coming to me for? I have done what I'm supposed to do. Probably you made demands that brought me here, and I have also serviced your demand. So why are you expecting me to do road? You know, so there is a whole lot of questions to be answered. Now, because of issues like this, it makes it almost impossible for the people to demand accountability. Because where are you going to start from? Probably the local government chairman that you have collected money from. Now you are now coming to say, no, Mr. Chairman, you must account for what you are doing with the resources of the local government. Which math are you going to use to demand such level of accountability? You know, so these are areas that are really making it difficult for people to openly come out and demand accountability. And in the absence of this, I must tell you, there is no way the local government, you know, will bring impactful projects, programs and activities that will benefit the people.
All right, Honorable Covey, I want to agree with your points that you're passionately, you know, dishing out, and I want to say with both points from both gentlemen, is a shared problem and is a shared solution, which I believe we should be able to strike a balance to say local people should reduce their local demands and problems, all the elected officials, as well as also the elected officials must be accountable, must also be focused in understanding what are some of the challenges of the local people, to be able to solve them moving forward. But I want to tell us at this juncture, we'll be, taking calls from our correspondents so that we'll get to know more because of some of the network challenges. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, is that Sandra Keme from, okay, Sandra Keme, I am very sure, from Gwagwalada Area Council. Sandra, you've been doing very well. We must commend you for all the updates you've brought to us on the program, FCT Decides. Now, what do you have to tell us from Gwagwalada Area Council at this moment?
Okay, thank you very much, Ajay. Right now I'm at Central Primary School, Dobin.
Okay.
Here they have up to 9 polling units.
Okay.
And by the time we got there, we saw a lot of people sitting relaxed. And so when I tried to get information, we noticed that a lot of them have already cast their ballot.
Wow.
So that's the way, and from here we can even see some of the polling units empty. We couldn't find people. So I have with me here one of the presiding officers who will be telling us more about his own polling unit. Because that is where I am standing right now. Because I did not see any illegal voter.
Okay.
So we had to sign up for.
All right. Please, let him summarize. Hello, good afternoon. Can you just summarize what had happened at your own polling unit in terms of those that have come to vote? Talk to us, please.
Yeah. The voting
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, thank you very much. But that means with what you've experienced, there was no hitch with the beavers and everything, went well in your favor. All right, we must thank you very much for joining us live, in our studios. We wish you all the best, and please continue to stay safe while you do other, parts of the job. Thank you very much. All right, Sandra, please, we'll keep, reaching you to, give us updates on what's happening in Gwagwalada Area Council. Thank you very much. All right, please, move very well. Okay, we'll be going back to Rabiat. Rabiat is also ready. So, Rabiat, what's the latest? Let's hear from you, please.
Okay, now still with the monitoring exercise, where that's both. I have here with me now the resident commissioner, I think that Malam give us more observers in monitoring exercise, as well as what
we noticed the beavers were performing up. Most of the locations we went through, the study officers report accreditations taking place 2 to 10 seconds, and that's very encouraging. So far, it's been peaceful. Aside from the usual yes, we expect that as soon as the polls close at 2:30, those who are still allowed to vote, the presiding officer will round up the process at the polling unit and declare the polling unit result. And thereafter, you would upload the result to the IREC, and then, of course, move to the coalition, the RA. It is at RA level that we want to have declaration of winner with the
councillorship position. The chairmanship position will have to move to the area council of the commission, where collated and the winners declared. So far, we have just finished the retraining of the college are being deployed to all the area councils. So within the next 1 hour or so, all the college complete and be ready to start the college report.
All right. So what can you tell us about how has it?
Security has been taken care of properly, where we have stated the entire the police have been ready. So we only appreciate what the
Okay, Rabia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Rabia, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would want you to ask the REC on areas where they had 1 or 2 challenges, especially with the beavers, delay of arrival of material. Will there be an extension of the time for the closing of voting? Let's get to hear from him, please.
Any location where there is established delayed arrival of material to put it, which is very for this election. The party and the other stakeholders and the PU are fully aware, and there will be all those who are here to vote will be allowed to vote. Nobody will be disenfranchised of timing. They will be allowed to vote once you are on as a time closing of the vote. But once everybody on the is attended and there's nobody waiting to be attended, of course, the process of closing the poll will commence.
All right, yeah, we heard for the
All right. Thank you very much, Rabiat, for that update, which I think is coming very strong from the Resident Electoral Commissioner, FCT, Malam Aminu Kasimo Idris. Thank you for reaching out with that information. We hope to hear more from you. All right, gentlemen, you're still here patiently waiting and also observing like we're doing together with what's happening, from the field. We just had my colleague Sandra Kemel over the phone in her experience in one of the polling units, Adobe, I think that's Adobe ward, is that as at this time, it's like the job is almost done, but they're just waiting for the time as stipulated, by INEC and the regulations to end 2:30. Is that not commendable?
Yeah, I think that's commendable. Did she mention the number of voters?
Over 200.
Okay, that means the process was really seamless.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really seamless, and then of course they have to now wait for if there are more voters coming. And at 2:30 they close the. So it means that the results of that polling unit should be expected in a short while after close of voting. I mean, sorting and counting will also happen. So it's commendable indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, sincerely from her report so far, one significant thing I picked out of the report is the fact that after votes were cast, they said the people left. That is to show some level of trust, confidence in the system, because generally the initial mindset of people is that no, once you cast your votes, you must stay there to protect your votes. But the situation where we now have reports like this, where there is no sense of crowdiness, there is no tension, or there is no insistence that every activity or the process must be followed by the crowd of the people. I think it is something that we really need to commend the electorate for, because this is not the business of the electorate, because it takes the responsibility of the electorate to defend their vote. But if they now have this level of trust for INEC, and the security agencies, that the vote they have casted are secured and protected, then I think we are almost at the right step in the right direction.
In one of the reports we took earlier, I heard one of our correspondents talking about the situation at the city center. Some places you just have few persons coming to vote. And then when we joined Ramot Ablai in Faraway Abaji, Deborah Maika in Kwali, Wagimba in Barpa from just one peculiar polling unit, you tend to see more people at the local, the hinterlands interested in the process. But the city center, I don't know if there is an answer I explain that. We're too busy.
Yeah, this was what I was talking about very early on in this discussion.
Yeah.
Where I talked about the fact that AMAC in the last election recorded 5.3% of voter turnout. 5.3. So you had a situation in a ward like Guarimpa in which councillors were elected with less than 1,000 votes. So I feel this is a really interesting thing we need to study, that if the most elitist part, in quotes now, of the territory can be so low in terms of how people turn out to vote, then what's responsible for that level of lack of interest? Because I will not say it's a problem of awareness. That would not be a problem of awareness. Is it like some of the elites believe that the voting process is beneath them, and then if the elites respond in that way, how then do they get to encourage others? I think there's also another dimension of it, which is that a lot of the election workers, like you and I now, we're in the studios, we're in the studio analyzing, which is something that has been clamored for to be corrected, that essential workers, we should be able to do early voting, and then we should be able to also cast our ballots, despite the fact that on election day we are busy trying to dish out information to people at home. So I think that is also a factor, but we also need to do this in terms of an evidence-based inquiry to really understand, is it just lack of motivation to vote among people who are supposedly educated, wealthy, and I dare say healthy, and it's not even like maybe Abaji, where somebody will struggle from one area. Here the roads are.
All right, sorry, let me just interject you there. We have our correspondent from Jua. Mariam Jutubo, if you can hear me, please give us the latest, please.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Abdullah, how are you?
Okay, let's take Serafina quickly, Mariam, before we come to you. Okay, Serafina, please, can you just summarize what's the latest over there in Kuje, please?
Oh, okay, yes.
Disconnected.
Relatively have been so peaceful. Has been really peaceful, no violence, no incidents been recorded. But however, I would like to Galway Ward 1 with over 1,000. The group that has been one to the unit has 1,100 and something registered voters. Relatively peaceful.
All right.
The terrain is really difficult. The roads are not motorable at all.
All right, Serafina, I think we'll just have to cut you here because we're running out of time for now. We want to thank you and urge you to continue to put together the reports and also updates. By the time we come back again, we'll be able to get the latest from Kuje, where you are currently covering. Thank you for joining us again.
Of course, Ajay. Thank you.
All right. I think, gentlemen, our time is up, but just in few seconds, was your parting words? Few seconds, because we are running out of time.
Okay, quickly, like just what we initially discussed lastly, that has to do with the reason why people are not turning out within the city center.
Your parting words, we just have to go for now, please.
Yeah, like I want to say, You see, the responsibility of good governance is tied to the electorate and to the Nigerian citizens. So let us deem it fit and necessary to ensure that at every voting time and season, we should always go out and vote candidate of our choice.
All right, Amsfrey Ajanaku, few seconds.
I want to see improvement from 2022 in terms of voter turnout, and I wish all the candidates and voters a very good election.
We want to thank you very specially for joining us on Fct Decide's live studio. Honorable Kobe Andrew Epetu, co-DG Coalition to Transform Nigeria, for finding time to be with us on the program.
It's my pleasure.
And my very own friend that has been with us, sustaining, this program all through. Amsfrey Ajanaku is the Executive Director, Grassroots Center for Rights and Civic Orientation, for your input and incisive analysis on some of the issues we brought forward on the program.
Thank you so much.
And we hope we will invite you to come again.
Definitely, I'll be.
All right, to our esteemed viewer out there who has, kept company with us all through from when Ifoma came on board, and now that we have to go, but be rest assured that all that is happening around, conclusion of the voting, counting, and subsequent announcement of the result will definitely be brought to you by the NTA. This moment, we have to go. I am Abdullah Hajia, thanking you for your time.